What's your input? Need you
No, take your time.
Okay, got it. Ready.
Get started in a minute or so. Tucker, are you ready? And are you able to give the document to the, okay. And who's coming up to the front for, just Brian? And Dan, perfect. Okay, so give us 2 minutes. We're gonna do a couple other items on the agenda and then this is your night. We literally have cleared everything else out, so I know. Okay, thank you. Well, we'll call the meeting to order, please. Judy, would you do the roll
Yes.
call, please?
Judy Neville, Tom Schulte. What happened to Tom?
Tom's here. Yeah.
Okay, there, okay. Amy Carroll,
Here.
Todd Lavieri.
Present.
Is Michael Shin coming or not? He's out
Mhm.
altogether.
Mhm.
Okay. Chris Labrie.
He's here.
Victor Alvarez is coming or out.
I don't
He's
know where
out,
he is.
out.
He was supposed to be here.
All right. Marie Weingarten.
Here.
Robert Hamel.
Here.
Colin Dobbin
Here.
and James Yaho.
Yep.
So we still need to replace Victor and Michael. So what do you think? Hamel and Colin all over
Yeah,
again?
sure.
Is that okay with everybody?
Sure.
Motion to seat both Robert Hamel and Colin Dobbin.
So move.
Motion, Chris, second.
Second.
Tom, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None? So moved.
Okay.
Kevin Whitehead will be here. He's just running an election for the ethics.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Okay, so I do need a motion to approve the minutes, please, from the January 17th.
I have an amendment.
You have a question?
I know I want to amend them.
Yes.
Want to amend them? Go ahead.
Yes, so in under 220 Elm Street. So the last sentence, I would change, I think it's the last sentence, I have it up right. Ms. Carroll requested an updated analysis be provided by the first selectman of the projections justifying the acquisition of 220 Elm, reflecting the total renovation costs required, including the 750,000 already approved and the additional 1,359,000 requested.
1,000 requested, the whole, yeah.
Million. 1.35.
Million, that's my point. 000.
000.
Okay.
And I sent it to Tucker. Any problem with that, maybe?
I think the amendment's fine.
We need a motion or,
I think we just move a motion with that amendment,
all right,
with that change. As
all right,
amended,
as
okay?
amended. Okay.
Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Maria, second?
Second. Second.
All in favor? Aye, opposed? None? So moved. Okay, could I invite please Josh and Ann to come up? Let's take care of just a couple of housekeeping items on transfers and then just an overview on the budget. I think Josh, you're going to be doing that. Let's do the transfers if there are any.
Are we doing transfers first?
Yep.
Sure, let me just share my screen. So there are $14,750 worth of transfers just to review, not to approve. Just kind of the standard admin transfers.
Anybody have any questions on those? For you?
It's good.
There is unfortunately one transfer to approve that is annoyingly small.
That is annoyingly small.
It is annoyingly small, but it's between projects, so it kind of has to be
Good.
approved. So it is a $242 transfer between FY 23 trailers and FY 23 infield machine.
Does anyone want to have their name on that as moving it? Maria, all right. You are a good person.
Oh, I
Wow.
thought you meant engraved.
That's right. Costs more than the transfer.
True.
We can't spend more on the transfer to give her an award than we have as a transfer. $242. Maria, second, please. Bob? Okay. All in favor of the $242 transfer?
Aye.
Opposed? None?
Appreciate that.
Thank you, Josh.
Deep discussion.
So on budget or?
Yeah, I think we just asked for, look, we all have the book and went through it. over the weekend. Overview of your senses to the budget, some of the highlights and headlines for everybody here and online.
Sure. So in front of you, you have your books as well as just a brief summary of some of the highlights for the budget. Kind of just to quickly go through on the expenditure side, overall, it's up 8.8 million, which translates to 5.45%. And obviously that's impacted greatly by inflation and materials and supply. And of course, the bringing back of tax supported capital, no longer using the bond premium to offset that, it's about a $1.52 million increase there. Any questions specifically on these expenditure side? It's a very brief overview.
Well, maybe just we don't have any actuals, of course, for the fiscal year we're in, but how are the expenses running overall? And maybe, or if you've gone by these town Board of Ed, capital.
The
Yeah.
current ones are running on trend. We're slightly, as we know, slightly ahead in our taxes, with the collection rate strong. And also, there was one other item. So we had, the supplemental was up, collection rate is strong. and-
Interest income.
Interesting.
Oh, thank you. I knew there was something.
Like
Sorry,
expense.
late.
You fixed it.
Interest income is up a lot, obviously, with the rates as they're going and taking full
Yeah.
advantage of
Yeah.
the rates. So we've money markets,
But expenditures are on trend.
expenditures right now are on track. Yep.
On the revenue side for the budget, we put keeping building permits flat, conveyance fees down half 500,000, parking up just a little bit, 40,000. Interest on investments up 400,000 to 900,000. Just anticipating kind of a return on that. And other revenues is down quite a bit, mostly because of the bond premium transfer in. So
That still have to be made. That's why we just have to make that on premium.
When do you do that?
Sorry?
When do you do
Oh,
that?
We actually just talked
Like
today
next
and I
week.
said next week. I said, well, it's just it's a
Okay.
journal transfer. We need to do an
Okay.
approved transfer. So,
So it'll be in the February books.
yeah, oh, it'll
Perfect.
definitely be in
Okay.
February.
All right.
Yeah.
Good.
We're looking at all the transfers we need to clean up. Approved transfers already.
Yep. So that's kind of it on just a brief overview of where we're at.
You want to take a minute on the audit?
The audit, thank you. So I just want to bring the committee up to date, or the board up to date on the plans and the timelines right now that we're looking at. As you may know, we filed an extension and then filed an extension for the February 1st, so that we will file February 28th. So currently the timeline is, we're coming in front here just to let you know our timeline on the dates. We then are also going to do the town council on the 15th to let them know. The audit committee is going to meet on the 16th.
When do they get the book? They
They
get
got
the,
the book on the 3rd. So they got the books on the 3rd.
oh, okay.
And then the MDNA got out today, but I
Okay.
still have some minor changes, the transmittal and MDNA,
Okay.
but just given the bulk of it.
Good.
So they got the updated MDNA and transmittal today. We already got questions back coming from the audit committee, which is great. So it's moving along, keeping that going. The 16th is when they're going to meet on their first one, and hopefully we'll have a lot of their changes incorporated at that point. The next meeting then will be the 24th, Friday, the 24th. With the audit committee. Hopefully, we may not need that meeting, but if we
Sure,
do,
sure.
that'll be the last one for the vote to then we have a town council meeting because it's required to go in front of the town council for their vote on the 27th, Monday, the 27th, and then the auditors and myself will file it on the 28th to get that finally in. And again, as some of the background was, we had a lot of changes in staff, we had a lot of changes in processes. We had some issues along the way that we had to fix in regards to our financial system sunsetting, fixed assets, different things that we went through to get it done. But I'm confident that we're going to have it, it'll be filed by the end of the 28th. Because I feel it's in pretty good condition. We're just
Good,
waiting for all the
good,
comments.
good.
Are coming.
Good. Okay. Any questions? Okay, I think that's good. Do you have anything else for us? All right, we'll get to the Board of Ed. Before we go to the Board of Ed, real quickly, there was an event at the library last week, and there were 500 people there for a small reception for some of the donors. I have to tell you all, the place is stunning. It is incredible. A few of us were there. there's a grand opening ribbon cutting, Tucker, refresh my memory, I think it's at 9 o'clock on Tuesday.
14.
And so, but I'd like to just take 1 minute and thank Neil Budnick, who's not here, but who put in unbelievable hours over the last decade.
Yeah, he was the first liaison.
First liaison. Chris Labrie, who, I don't know if you were the second liaison, but
I
from,
was the president of the board, but he was. the liaison.
yeah, that's right, right. Tremendous hours. Tom Schulte, who I'm pretty convinced doesn't happen without Tom Schulte's help. Tremendous. This board, all these members, all the things that everybody did, legal, finance, the contract, the MOU, everything, unbelievable help and support. So I just wanted to have a thank you, and to the town council, all the members of the town council that were there with you as not as a liaison, but also helping. So tremendous effort by this town to have the product that we have. Yeah, thumbs up, Steve, to you and to everybody else. I have to say, the product that we have, when you get a chance to go, you will be really pleasantly surprised. Is whatever high bar you have, it'll be that bar. The place is incredible. You agree? I don't know, Amy, you were there. Any other thoughts or?
The most
Comments?
exciting thing is the town coming behind
Yeah.
a library.
That's right.
I mean, that says a lot about the
That's it.
town, that there's such a priority for a library.
That's right.
It's phenomenal.
Right. When we sat here, I don't remember how many years ago now, because I've got COVID timing. It was either, you know, pre-COVID or after COVID or during COVID, and things that I think were like 18 months ago or 4 years ago. But I think I turned to you or to Neil and said, I turned to Amy and said, are you telling me we're getting that for $10 million at virtually zero interest rates? Where do we sign up? I mean, that was a no brainer. And anyway, you're right. The whole town came together. And the generosity of the members of this town, wow, you know, they've raised, I don't know, $30-ish million already in the bank. And anyway, just wanted to take a minute on that. It's a tremendous accomplishment, and really, I really encourage you to go to the opening or go to visit it. 14th. Yeah. What do you mean it's not this Tuesday? It's next
14th.
Tuesday.
7.
Yeah.
It's next week.
Valentine's
I was just taking,
Tucker.
giving myself grief for not catching what year it is. But at least I know what day it is. I mean, you know, it's next Tuesday. No sweat. All right. Okay. Anyway, enough on that. So anyway, just get a chance to do it. It's amazing. Okay. With that, I'll turn it over to Brian and Dan and Sean. As everybody knows, we're not voting on the budget tonight. This is really the first read for all of us to get our arms around where are we, what the assumptions are, and how we're doing on the expenses and so forth. And as always, we like to start with what we call the product. Let's talk about the product. You know, we've got an amazing product. And so always like to hear about that. And then we'll talk about the dollars. Thank you.
Just give us a brief moment here.
Yep.
Get ourselves set up.
Now, we have questions that you took a swing at answering.
Yes.
Do we want to, after you go through your show and presentation and all the things you want us to see, do we want to we'll just tick through them one at a time like that? Is that the best way to do it, or?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
And I tried to group them, so like
yep.
questions were together around.
Sounds good.
staffings and things, so
Okay, thank you.
hopefully that's helpful. The only thing I'm trying to do is share part of this.
And board members, feel free to ask questions as we go. I mean, we'll keep it moving, but as something pops up.
Okay, great. So I'd like to thank the Board of Finance for this opportunity to present the 2023-2024 Board of Education budget. This budget was passed unanimously by the 9-member Board of Education at our January 23rd meeting. And the BOE is committed to continue to provide a best-in-class education to the kids in New Canaan. That starts with having such a strong leadership team, starting with Dr. Lutzy, our superintendent, his administrative team, our amazing teaching staff, and all the other staff that come together daily to help run our schools and deliver that best-in-class education. And we think this budget is a reflection of that commitment. And I'll let Dr. Lutzy get into more detailed presentation, but you'll see throughout this budget some of the initiatives that our board and the district have and continue to pursue. So we implemented the new start times initiative. this school year, and the early feedback from students, parents, and teachers has been positive. We are continuing our planned literacy academy, which was started in last year's budget. And we actually had an excellent presentation at last night's Board of Ed meeting with some kind of early results. And I'd encourage you to check it out if you wanted to. It was very, it was a great update. So with that, I just want to say thank you to Todd, all the other members of the Board of Finance for the opportunity to bring this forward. And we look forward to the discussion tonight and in coming weeks where we hope to answer any and all of your questions.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Dan. And as Dan mentioned, it is absolutely our pleasure to be here with you tonight. Thank you for clearing the agenda for us. That was very thoughtful. We get right started. Well, I think it's apropos to begin by saying that the state of the district is strong. And
I think you did that last year.
last year it was March 15th,
Was-
so it was
we-
the Ides of March. So-
That's right. That's right.
Oh, we
That's
need
right.
something.
Oh, gosh.
But,
that's
you
right.
know, and-
Should we stand up and cheer?
never been stronger. How about that? And actually, it feels pretty good saying that coming out of the last couple of years, as you mentioned. It's been quite a tumultuous couple of years here for all
Sure.
school districts everywhere. And you know, to be on our stride and investing our time and energy, resources into the initiatives that matter most, instead of sort of having to act and react and always problem solve 24/7 around problems that you can't anticipate. It's been good. It's really been an exciting year. We had a great opening, as I shared with you earlier, probably one of the best of all time. And the year continues in a very positive way. So that's a great thing to be able to share. And just to echo on the library, I mean, I've been, communicating with them. They're great partners with us in the district. And that it's another crown jewel in the town. When I came to the Board of Selectmen, they were talking about Waveney and how Waveney's the crown jewel. I like to think we're the crown jewel. So that's a nice problem to have. It's
Yeah.
really, really a wonderful thing. So we are excited to be here with you tonight. I'd love to begin, as we typically do, just talking a little bit about the outcomes, right? Because a budget is so much more than a spreadsheet, as all of you know. It's really a resource plan that leverages our priorities, our values, beliefs on behalf of children, and the outcomes are important. We've got to begin with what is the return that we're seeing on that investment. But before I get into that, let me just spend a moment to thank a few folks. Again, Dan is our new Board of Education Chair, and he was elected in November, doing a fabulous job in that role. Katrina is our Vice Chair, and Erica Schwedel, who's here, is our Secretary. We also have Phil Hogan is here with us tonight, and a few other board members, I imagine, may be logging in remotely or otherwise to take a look and to be a part. The Board of Education, as you know, it's a 9-member elected body, volunteer board, and some of the hardest working people in town for sure. They help to guide the ship and to steward the resources and the district itself. And they're really outstanding partners for me, for the district, and should take great pride in the work and the outcomes that we have. Our district administrator, sitting to my right, is Sean O'Keefe. Many of you met Sean just right in the beginning of the meeting here. Sean is our new Director of Finance and Operations. I won't go into his extensive resume, but we're thrilled to have him on board. I'm sure you've seen it. We also have Tracy Haberman here, who is our budget director. Tracy is the mechanic behind the development of the budget. She knows everything there is to know about putting all of this together, and is the person we all go to when we have questions or need feedback or whatever it might be. Tracy, thanks for being here, and thank you for everything you did building this budget and all you do every day. Of course, other members of the cabinet are here with us tonight. Dr. Correnti, our Deputy Superintendent, Curriculum Instruction. Bill Tasber, who is our Assistant Superintendent, Family and Pupil Services. Darlene is not here physically, but I know that she's logged in. She came into the office today for a bit. It was great to see her. And of course, all of our principals and others. It's one of the great outcomes of the last couple of years. We've learned to be remote. And instead of having them sitting here and they all were ready and willing to do so, I told them, go home, put your slippers on, and you can log in and watch from there. So I know our principals are watching, others are watching, and I want to say a special thanks to all of them just as we get started. Because as you know, we build our budget from the top down, bottom up, meaning the guidance comes from the top, but really the work and the thinking and the development of the proposal comes from the folks doing the work. Because we believe that the best decisions about the work are made at the level at which the work is done. We guide, it's a relationship that's sort of loose and tight. It's tight when it needs to be, but gives them the the room to make the decisions where appropriate on behalf of children. And it has led to wonderful results as we've seen. We've got just the meeting schedule up front, and I just like to share this because it just shows the detail that we go through as we work our way through the budget. Here we are now on February 7th. And you see, this is the first of 4 opportunities that we'll have formally at meetings. And of course, we'll have other conversations as well as we did on Friday and then and other back and forth along the way. Over the course of the month, we're here to answer any questions and certainly hear your feedback and advice and suggestions as well. And then we go over to the town council, as you know. All in all, there are over 15 formal budget meetings that we have, opportunities for feedback and a way to continue to refine and think about the work that we do. I also think about that as opportunity to talk about the work that we do, because as you know, we believe our work is the most important work on the planet. And we treat it that way every day. The way to begin when building a budget, as I mentioned, it's so much more than a spreadsheet, is to consider what are our goals for the district? What's our mission, vision, values, and ultimately they're articulated in our goals. And we've consistently had 5 overarching goals that inform our work. And you see here they are. The first is a student learning goal. Second is communication. Third is focus on teacher quality. Fourth is our social emotional learning goal, school culture, climate goal, safety. It all is rolled up together. And then of course, goal 5 is our stewardship goal. Each of these independently is very important. Together, we sort of form the network that guides our district's continuous improvement work. What we do annually is develop our indicators underneath each of these goals, and it can range anywhere from 30 to 38 or so indicators in any given year. They guide our work, they inform our presentations to the Board of Education and the community, and they help make sure that we continuously move forward in the efforts that we make on behalf of children. Having these 5 consistent goals, sort of they serve as our true north, and they keep us consistently moving in the right direction. So a couple of results from that, as you know, we spent a good number of years talking about our school start time initiative. And after some significant conversation and a few different scenarios, I think 36 to be exact, we landed on what we're using this year, and we actually implemented it at the start of this year. And by all accounts, as Dan mentioned, it's been highly successful. We are waiting just a little bit longer to survey the students and parents and others. We want to sort of get through the season a little bit more and give that a shot. But in conversation with folks at all levels, teachers, kids, parents, the feedback has been very positive. And it's really been focused for the oldest kids who go earliest at 8 o'clock on that half an hour shift, really reducing the tension and the stress in the morning in a significant way. He said it really just takes the edge off where their children, this is from the parents, where their children can get up in the morning, they can talk, they're human beings in the morning instead of sprinting out the door first thing. And of course, for us, one of the things we really focused on was the first bus pickup time. And so thanks to Roy Walder and his wizardry and making it all work, our first student is generally not picked up before 7:10 in the morning. So you figure we went from 6:28 to 7:10 in the swing for pickup. And so although it's a 30-minute move, it's a 42-minute shift in bus timing. And for those kids out there who are no longer waking up at 5:45 to get here, it makes a world of difference. So we're thrilled with that. We're thrilled with the outcome. There was some, I know, concern on the board of Board of Finance and all the boards about what about the professional staff? What would the teachers say? And so I've been going and meeting with each of our new teachers at all 5 of our buildings. And to a person, they were very positive about it. What we're seeing is folks that came in early before still come in early, and they're having a cup of coffee. They're having a more relaxed start to their day, meeting with colleagues, maybe doing whatever last minute preparations they might need. And then the students are arriving after that. So for instance, even at our elementaries that are starting at 8:40, we have teachers that are getting there at 6 o'clock in the morning. This is just how they're wired. It's just what they do. And it's working for all of them. So they're finding the students are a little calmer as they're arriving, and it's not quite the scramble. And the teachers are able to approach their day similarly. So we'll get more quantitative data as the year goes on a little bit more. But that was a significant investment on the part of the Board of Finance in the town. That cost about $1 million, per year. So we know that's baked in. So we're going to keep an eye on it. And if we need to make some tweaks, we will. But early returns have been very positive.
Can I just ask one quick question? I know that in some other districts, there were some issues with staffing, that the time shifts might have impeded some teachers. Have we seen that here in the
No.
district? No.
We haven't, not for our staff or for the DATCO drivers either.
Mm.
Nope, nope.
Great.
We have not had any attrition that where people said, I'm leaving because of this. Yep. There are always concerns because it's the unknown, but no, we haven't had that.
So a half hour later start for the high school in Saks. Remind me just the elementary or
Sure.
the elementary in Saks 5-6.
Yep.
What do we go from to?
So what we had the elementary split on two different tiers. So South Elementary School started at 8:20 and East and West started at 9:05. So we collapsed that. We put them in the same tier in the middle from that 8:40 to 3:10. And the benefits there, and they're numerous, certainly for after school and activities and different things. That's so that the kids are getting out at the same time so they can begin. But really professionally for us, our staff now are all available at the same time for professional learning. So we're able to grab the third grade teachers district-wide, bring them all together at the same time after or before school and do work with them. And they can work together with each other. So it's really great when you have 3 elementary schools to have them line up that way. And then the 5th and 6th at Saks is that last tier at 9:15 to 3:45. And on the other side of the day, we talked about nobody being picked up before 7 a.m. in the morning. We've met that goal. And the other was nobody gets dropped off in the afternoon in the dark. And we've met that goal as well. And that's because 5 and 6 is by itself on that tier. There are fewer kids on the buses. The runs are shorter and we're able to get them home quicker. So the average bus ride is at or below around 20 minutes for Saks.
And what was Saks 5-6 before?
5-6 was lined up in the middle tier, so they were 8:15
Okay.
start.
I have to say, as someone who had the first pickup in the mornings for my kids, it was torture. So I think this is great that you did that. It's important for them to get more sleep.
So it was a long effort
It was. a lot.
Yeah.
and it was worth it. Isn't that the best thing to be able to say?
Pre-COVID.
I love it.
Battle Royale.
Pre-COVID.
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah, it was definitely. free.
Oh, yeah, we were rolling into this at 2018 or so. We started.
Yeah.
It was 2016. We actually started doing the research. So yeah, so we're very pleased with where we are with it. And again, if there's ways to tweak it, we'll continue to. If we can collapse the tiers a little, do some things, but so far, so good. And on the bus well, I'll get to the numbers in a little bit. Another quick return on investment. I think it's important to talk a little bit about the whole student experience, right? So we're talking about start and end times to begin, but our budget and our focus and our work really, it centers on the entirety of that student experience from the time we meet them in the morning at the bus stop to the time that they get home at the end of the day. Part of that experience, certainly for high school students, is athletics. And boy, if we had another very successful year with our New Canaan High School athletics program. First, the FCAC Cup, which is for all sports, and it's named by the other teams in the FCAC. They pick a school to honor with this, and we actually have won this several times. And they look to honor participation, scholarship, achievement, results, and service. And it really speaks to our kids, right? Because that's the kids while they're competing at away tournaments, away games, the other coaches are watching. So it's selected by the coaches and the athletic directors across the FCAC. And it's really a nice honor because it speaks to the totality of our program. Some individual and some certainly team recognitions. Our field hockey team has been amazing these last couple of years, 15-3 record, CIAC finalist, FCAC finalist, and it's a very competitive region, as you know. Of course, football, with one loss, we won the Turkey Bowl, and we kind of broke the pattern of winning the Turkey Bowl but losing in the States. And had a wonderful run all the way right through the state finals and took the Class L championship up in New Britain. It was a great game, a little cold, but a great game. Our golf teams are fabulous as well. And again, I think that speaks to team and individual accomplishment. Our boys golf team, FCAC runners up. Our girls golf team may very well be the best team that's ever been fielded.
Oh my God.
They are amazingly, stunningly
Oh,
talented.
great.
13-0.
Yeah, and last
Wow.
year had similar success, and we're anticipating it next year. It's really an amazing group, an amazing team. Our swim and dive has always been strong, and that's with partnership with the YMCA across the street. What we do. Our ice hockey, 24-0-1, FCAC and state champions. Girls lacrosse, 20-1, FCAC and Class L champions. And with all of that great success, you would think that, well, it's only the very best who participate. It's only that, the very top 10%, and they're the reason why it's the same 10%. We have over 70% of our student body participating in athletics.
How does that compare over the last few years? Has it been about that?
We've been working to bring it up a little bit.
70?
Yeah, what we've done
That's
is
high. It seems high.
it's high,
Yeah.
70%. So at every 10 students, 7 of them individually are in one or more sports,
Oh.
and that's, those individual kids.
It's awesome.
And so when you look at the actual total number of slots we participate in, it's well above our total enrollment, because kids are into 1, 2, or 3 sports. Because then we've also got groups that are in rowing, that do squash, that do some other sports that aren't included in these numbers because they're not CIAC endorsed sports.
Oh.
So it's even the actual may be a little bit higher.
The
So
70% doesn't include the
I don't
club
believe
sports?
so.
Does include crew.
Yeah,
don't
club
believe so.
sports. Yeah.
What else doesn't it?
Okay.
I
include?
think it's those 3.
Just,
Skiing, crew. and
oh,
squash.
really? Really? Oh,
So it's really great. A great accomplishment. And it really speaks to the environment that's created there too. Right. And for instance, we try to, anyone in the sub-varsity levels, we try to make sure we have spots for them. We try. You can't always. There's some sports, you only put so many people on a basketball court or so many people on a baseball field. But some other sports, sometimes we've created 2 sub-varsity, like 2 JV teams or 2 freshman teams with an additional coach. And a significant portion of that investment actually is funded privately through the All Sports Booster Club, where it's not unusual in a given year for them to donate $450,000 for coaching and equipment annually into that program. Really, it's a great story, which keeps our budget number down. So for all of that, it's hovers around $1 million, if I'm correct, which is amongst the lowest in the FCIAC because of the private contributions that supplement. Yeah. First, I'll never talk about athletics without spending a little time with VPA as well, because we don't want to only be Sparta, we want to be Athens too. So our students in our visual and performing arts, again, had fabulous experience all through the year last year. And it was almost a rebirth, as you get into it because of the disruption of COVID. We know how sports were disrupted, but the visual performing arts were hit even harder. Between the inability to play instruments together, to get up on stage together, to perform. And so things opened up last year in large part, this year, certainly. So we've been putting an amazing amount of, just incredible amount of students up on the stage for our drama performances. Our students in our arts program, and there's digital arts, there's traditional arts, there's ceramics and others, they're winning awards all over the state, Gold Key Awards, Silver Key Awards. So it's the individual awards. We have our art shows here. Again, another great partnership is with the Glass House here in town, where we're putting on student art shows, doing other things with them. Our music program continues to be recognized and honored. We've been invited to play at several prestigious venues. We've got our entire music program, strings, orchestra, and chorus, is traveling down to Florida together to perform and to be adjudicated in a variety of different ways. So they've really come back even stronger than we left off when things were disrupted. And it's amazing to see. And here's just an example of, this is the new Saks Auditorium. And that is a pretty large stage. And there's almost not a square inch to be found that doesn't have a child in there.
We fun.
This was the performance for the lower division. There were over 130 students
Wow.
in front of the house and another 100 plus behind doing all of the stage work
my
and everything
God.
else. We've never seen numbers like that. And they're just so excited to be a part of it. And there's so much positive energy around that.
And
And,
how
uh,
about those acoustics?
That's what I was just saying to Judy.
it's always
You forget-
perfect.
you
in
forget
this
when-
town. Always.
Right?
We
This-
get it.
this
When we
Saks
do it, we
Auditorium
get it
is-
perfect. Yeah,
We have a big crown with a lot of jewels.
yeah, we do a lot of, lot of.
It's wonderful, but we're proud of it. And it's the best part is seeing the
Great.
kids using it like
Yeah.
this, they're,
That's.
and they've
the
got
difference.
the stage, they learn how to put on a performance. And these guys are in 5th and 6th grade. Imagine where they'll be as they work their way through the grades and through the performances and the work that we do. So really just inspiring. We also, we've got our athletics, we have our visual performing arts, we also have our co-curricular, extracurricular program that is not a large investment per se, but can really make the difference for a child. Because not everyone's going to be in sports, not everyone's going to be in VPA. But there may be some kids that want to create a club around beekeeping. Or they may want to be in a club and make up their own game around, Quidditch or something else. They may want to get together to pursue different hobbies in a chess club or something like that. And so what we do is we open that up for kids with just a couple of kids and some interest. They find an advisor and they get going with a club. Something like some of the beekeeping and others, the teachers aren't remunerated. They don't ask for that. That's not why they do it. They do it because they want to be with kids. They love being with kids. So others are larger, certainly more sophisticated, like our United Nations, a model UN program, where we actually have students that are traveling. They travel overseas annually to The Hague. They go to tournaments in Cornell and Dartmouth and other places and are, awarded as they're doing that. And they do a fabulous job. Our student council, certainly our Courant newspaper, the art club, Jets is our engineering society, and they also compete and do work. So we've got both, right? There's a balance there, but it's really centered on the philosophy and the belief that we have, which is it's our responsibility to do everything in our power to connect every child in our schools all the way up from, K up possible, and connect them to the school in a non-academic way if possible, right? Get them in a club, get them in a sport, get them on VPA somehow, do something like that. And that is how we strengthen our school culture. We don't want students to come in the morning at 8 o'clock, walk out the door at 2:30 and not think about school again. And we have very, very few students that do that. And those, we're still working with those. We're finding ways to get them attached as well. But that's our responsibility, right? School leaders and as
This has
educators.
grown huge.
It's grown, but it's also fun to see the new ones, the
know,
get the
that's
cryptocurrency club.
No, actually, my favorite is the
Will that be
extreme
there next year?
scientific experiment. and
I mean, what's
arguing.
going on there? Right. Oh, my gosh.
Against bullying. Wow.
It's amazing,
That's time.
right?
It's time.
Fantastic.
Yeah, extreme scientific experiments.
That is so.
And arguing.
That's
And
right.
arguing, yeah, and arguing, yeah.
Don't want to know.
Yep.
Awesome.
Well, there's an advisor for everyone.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Crazy.
It is, and it's fun, and that's what school should be, right? Kids should feel like they can be
Yeah,
kids
no,
and get
great.
together, and we want to be there for them, support them, give them space.
It's a great kid.
Now-
Police club.
In all of that, certainly, it doesn't take away from the focus on academics. And so we do always, of course, have to spend a little bit of time talking about our results there. And I'm very proud to say, as we got into 22, and these are the assessments that were taken in the spring of 22. When we aggregate the scores, grades 3 through 8, we came out on top of the state, top of the DERG in both English language arts and in mathematics. These are the Smarter Balanced assessments that are given, and the Smarter Balanced assessments are aligned with the Common Core standards, which are aligned with the Connecticut Core standards, which is aligned with our curriculum. So that's sort of how this becomes meaningful, right? As we look through things.
How do we do with the COVID? But how is this vis-a-vis pre-COVID, like our ratio?
So trending up.
Mhm.
I'll show you. There's a slide, a
Okay,
couple of
I'll wait.
pages,
Thank
not
you.
quite where it was, but trending up. Few more details. I'm not going to go into it, but just because when you aggregate grades 3 through 8, sort of like, well, what does that mean? Well, here they are across the DERG in the grades 3 through 8, and you see that we're at or near the top at every grade level as you go across, and the same with mathematics as you go across. Strong performance, across the grade, and again, that speaks to the curriculum that we use, the instructional strategies we use, our teacher evaluation process that we have, which really is we call it TEPL, but it's all around teacher quality and continuous improvement. And that's something that we've developed in-house and that we refine annually and use as a communication vehicle around teacher practice. So we really look on indicators, we look at actions, teacher actions, and help all of our staff to improve regardless of where they are in their experience in their years and in their performance. Because sometimes when you're taking something that someone else develops, there's not the room for growth for your highest performing individuals, right? They're just getting an excellent and moving on. Because we've developed this in-house, there's always room for movement and growth, regardless of the level of performance. So again, mathematics, NGSS is Next Generation Science Standards. It's an assessment given in grade 5, 8, and then in the high school. And again, we see our strong performance around science, and we do science a little differently than most at the elementary level. You know, we have dedicated science teachers who teach it as a special in the rotation, versus having the homeroom teacher teach science. And so what we get is a much higher quality program for our kids, taught by teachers who have a proclivity for science, and they're learning how to teach elementary science. That's their focus of their career, and the results are excellent. They're also supervised and led by Melinda Meyer, who's our new director of innovation. She's been our K-8 science curriculum coordinator, and we shifted that into the director of innovation last year. So she's still doing that work with them, but now instead of just a coaching role, she's also in the evaluative role as administrator there. And Amy, this was sort of to your question about our performance over time. So we went all the way back to 2016 and trended that out. So you see we were on an upward trajectory right through 2019. The test was not administered in 2020. Right? And so are the results in 21 and 22. So
You see you drop, yeah.
yeah, you can see it. I mean,
That's
it
interesting.
matters.
Trending straight up until that year.
Yep.
Wow.
And it's, we're picking it up, identifying gaps. And it was, I'm proud of, and I think we did an excellent job getting everyone back quickly and well. But they were out to have to come back, right? So you can't erase that period of time. And certainly in the spring of 2020, from that March closing to the end of the school year, where we just flipped to remote, it was different and challenging. So we're doing a lot of good work around this, and we're going to keep doing that. But it's also not the kind of thing that you just, in 1 year, problem solved, you pick it back up, you are where you are, right? This is a systemic issue challenge, because it's not just about the time the students weren't in school. It's also the disruption that they've just experienced in their lives. It's we see some other things with kids
That's amazing.
that aren't tested, right? We see some emotional dysregulation, if something doesn't go a student's way, sometimes there's just more of an emotional reaction than we had experienced in the past. So the work that we're doing around emotional intelligence and kind of self-regulation, really from kindergarten on up, is also another big focus of ours, because we think these things are connected for sure. If a student's doing a math problem and they can't quite figure it out, where that student might have tried a couple of times in the past, many times now students are just throwing their hands up, and they're frustrated. They don't have the stamina or the resiliency in that regard. So we're working through those things.
It's not close to what's reported elsewhere, though.
No,
It's not even close.
no, I mean, to be in the mid 80s.
Oh, yeah.
Seems amazing.
Yeah, I mean, this is
They've been-
percentage of our students meeting or exceeding the achievement level. I mean, I don't want to birdwalk, but all the way back when No Child Left Behind started in back 2001, they set a 100% proficiency target, and everybody threw their hands up and said, that's impossible. You're setting us up to fail. I think that once we get back on track and keep going, we're going to get pretty darn close.
Were the numbers in 19, 18 and 19 also at the top of the district? Probably, right? I would think so. Those are
Yeah.
really crazy good numbers. Wow.
We are work to do.
Of course, the budget for operations was only 77 million that year, so
Yeah.
maybe we should.
Oh.
All that in inventory. All right.
He can't help himself.
Good catch.
Sorry.
Got inflation
Good
adjusted.
catch,
so
yeah.
I have a slide on that too.
Thank you.
Yes.
There's a flag on that.
We go up to the high school. This is a chart you're familiar with. I had to lop off 2014 and 2017 because it was just getting too cluttered. But again, the point here is around consistency. We see our AP participation numbers being strong. What we've done over the last 10 years or so is really expand those opportunities for kids. We want kids to be able to take risks if they're ready and willing to step forward and give that a shot. So we've really gone from about a dozen or a few more AP classes to, what are we looking at? Do we have it in here as far as the number of courses go? 28 now. So if we go back to 2011, 12, we're looking at, maybe a dozen to 14.
Right.
Yeah. So, and those courses are everything. They're macroeconomics, microeconomics, psychology. So many of them are courses that students are going to experience when they go off to college. like micro, macro econ is a prerequisite in many, many majors for kids. And actually, we heard this when we were talking to them. They come back every December, our recent graduates, and they meet in a small group with the board and with the administration and some others guidance and talk about, what worked well, what should we do more of, what should we do less of as a school to prepare them. And many of them talked about economics, where they said they wish they had taken that course because everyone else in their econ class had it in high school. So we've continued to develop that program and things like that. And that's, again, it's about opportunity, right? Providing the opportunities for kids so they can have the experiences here for preparation for what comes next. So yeah, you see the bottom line there. So we're all in participation on athletics, VPA and the clubs. It's trending just below 90%, 89%. About 10 that we're working hard on.
Are the AP, number of AP courses also district leading? Where are, I mean, the
I've
28
gotta
is
think it's
about
close. Yeah, I mean, I haven't done
top
that
5
comparison,
or some
but
crazy thing.
I mean, we really, and it's student driven a lot, right? So we can we'll offer them in the catalog, and then if we get enough sign up, we'll go for it.
Sure.
With our AP computer science, for instance, and going from just computer science A to an A and a B and things like that, and developing sequences there. Yeah, I'm actually, I stay in touch with folks over at the College Board. And again, it's about opportunity for the kids, right? So we create it. And then I heard something once a long time ago is you can't measure motivation, but you can measure opportunity. So as a school, it's our responsibility to provide those opportunities so that the students, when motivated, will get in there and have those chances, those experiences. So, yep.
The AP participation is down though a little bit.
The numbers are only because of class size.
Okay.
Right, so we've graduated higher classes a little bit, so I think that drives it more than anything. Although, again, the pandemic was tricky.
Yeah.
Right, so what was a 3-hour test during the pandemic became a 45-minute online test. And the technology was pretty stunning. I mean, they used the camera in the computer to track your eyes to make sure that you weren't looking down at your phone or whatever. And you had to have a locked browser that could only, be on that site. So it was pretty stunning technology, but it still was only 45 minutes. So there's also, there's always a shift in the colleges and what will they accept? What don't they accept? And, how do those credits transfer, if at all? Often colleges will allow students to sort of opt out of those classes that they've taken APs in, but not necessarily grant credit. So if you take the AP Bio, you don't have to take Bio 101, but instead you have to take Bio 201 to do that, to get the bio credit in the school, things like that. So
What are AP scholars and what's that about?
sure. So AP scholars are students who have received a 4 or a 5 in, I believe it's 3 or more AP tests. And then there's tiers of the scholars. So it goes all the way up to, if you've gotten a 5 in 5 or more different course areas and things like that. So it's a way to distinguish. They've dialed it back a little, and they're going to be doing that because they're worried. The College Board is worried that kids are overly focused and putting too much stress on just that to their detriment. So they're dialing back the scholars program just a little bit, but.
So what drove the number here?
Which one? The AP scholars?
Yeah,
That is, if you look up, you see the participation in 2021 was 487. And then it was down to 450 to the 180. So I think it's
the scholar number took a dive there to 180.
right. I think in part it's driven by the 30 student drop in the total participation.
No,
It's from 487 to 450.
Was
but
enrollment
you
as
were
a
at
whole
450
down?
in 2020 and you had a higher school.
Yeah, and that test was the 45-minute online test.
Okay,
So they're back to the traditional test.
yeah, okay.
I think kids are getting strategic too. Sometimes you take too many and
Yeah.
Yeah.
in the big picture, you often look at your AP Scholar, till after you applied to college, so you can't even put it in. So it's like,
Right. That's right. And what you want students to use this as an opportunity to try new things. Of course, there's some students that can do all APs and they're fine, but those are few and far between. And that's what we had back 2011, 12 was a program that the most advanced students had AP courses that they could take. but not the rest, right? And there were just those cores. It was the AP US, the AP Bio, the AP Physics, the
Very
AP
few.
Calc.
Very few.
Right, and where the numbers were very low. So what we've done by expanding, by putting in things like psych and psych, macro and micro econ and, a different physics A and physics B, other things like that. We've enabled more students to come in and try that. So maybe you're not going to do the AP US history, but instead you might do the AP microeconomics for a semester and give that a try. So that's really been the philosophy and it's paid off.
So you have 28 classes, AP classes altogether, or you offer 28, but sometimes there's not enough students to fill the class.
There are 28 running, right? So we have them, and actually many of them are multiple sections. Right.
So you offer more than 28, it's just you couldn't fill those classes, or pretty much anything you offer is filled.
I think so for the most part. We really try to, if we have it in the catalog, we have kids that want to do it, we do try to run that
So
course.
staffing wise,
So
you have a teacher for every AP, pretty much.
pretty much, yeah, and our teachers generally are trained either 1 week or 2 weeks in the training by the College Board prior to doing that teaching.
Great.
But yeah, these are the running classes.
Right.
So the lots of great things going on internally, and it's nice to be recognized externally as well. This is one that I talk about often, niche. Because it's, as I've mentioned, I think it's more holistic than most. I still don't like ranking systems, but if we're going to look at one and you need to, I think this is a fair one to look at. Statewide, you see we're very consistent across the board. You can ask me the question if you want to.
Who's number one? Is that the question?
We trade back and forth with West.
I
Point
know.
generally on this,
They're
right?
good too.
Right. But
We're
looking
good.
below, I think is really stunning. The top is stunning. I mean, anyone would love that. But there are national recognition around the 21st best school district in America out of 10,751
Amazing.
districts that they rank.
Simply amazing.
18th out of over 11,000 best districts with the best teachers. 15 best places to teach.
We are one of 15.
We are
Number
number
15.
15
Oh, we're number 15.
out of
Oh, I get it. Okay.
11,579.
Would make us 1 of 50.
Yep.
Amazing.
These are all niche.
And that
Yeah.
these are all the,
Local.
yep, this is
niche.
all that, and this is the most recent, results. So, we think certainly locally, we make a decision, we think regionally around the other schools around us, but really when you blow the picture up, it's really stunning,
Nuts.
the results.
Congratulations, really, to
Oh, yeah.
everybody, especially the teachers. That's ridiculous. That's just tremendous.
But so congratulations, and it's also a thank you.
Yeah.
Because this is all done together, and this is the trust that you place in us and the
Truly
investment
incredible.
that you make and our stewardship of those resources as we make decisions on behalf of children and families.
Yep.
So really, really good stuff.
No problem with that.
It's great. And the next slide just captures a few different data points. So as we talk about the outcomes, now we want to talk about inputs just a little bit. This return on investment, the per pupil spending comparisons. So as you know, each year the state equalizes and they formulaically create this NCEP, net current expenditures per pupil. And this is based on the filings from each of the school districts in the EFS, the educational filing system. And the number is used for the state's calculation of excess cost grant eligibility, right? So if a high cost student is more than 4.5 times their net current expenditures, then that total amount is eligible for reimbursement, a certain percent. Generally, it runs about 72 to 75% of reimbursement. So it's an important number in that regard. Many financial sort of decisions hinge on that. So the state does go to pains to try to normalize these, right? Because there's always a question, what is that a reliable number, right? And this is all online and you can take a look and reverse out the formula and everything else. The ANGLIC, which is the adjusted equalized net grand list per capita, that didn't fit in the box, so I had to memorize it. Is just that, right? That's sort of considered your wealth rank. So this is all, again, available publicly online. And they're very close when you look at it, but Greenwich at number 1, Darien, Westport, and then New Canaan number 4. There are other sometimes there's a PC after that per capita. This is the all-in ANGLIC number. It's not adjusted per capita. And this is what the state uses here. So what you see is we are certainly amongst, the top in our Anglic, right, in which we would anticipate being. But our net current expenditure per pupil rank is down at the bottom of the dirt, in number 54. That's interesting. I was going to show sort of the trend over time, and I'd be happy to do it if you're curious. This is a tough number to move because there's so many fixed costs in an educational budget. Without a huge swing one way or the other of enrollment, this is a tough number to move. But we've done it over the last couple of years, in part because I believe the energy investments that we've made and some other things I'm going to talk about in a moment. But really, we've worked hard to drive down the operational costs. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to save money but you don't help outcomes by significantly reducing your staff, your teaching staff. Like that's going to change your outcomes, right? You don't want to do that. That's your core mission. So instead, we really do focus on those operational costs. How can we drive those down to protect the instructional core? And that's been our job. So when we really started taking a close look at this, we were about number 32 in the state. And we were right sort of in the middle, top third maybe of this list here. And now we're running down 54, and there's 169 towns in the whole list, right?
And the
How many-
healthcare cost too, right? Sorry. Probably.
Yeah, what is the number in the, what is the math? Because the
Yeah.
number of students divided by 100 million last year is not 22, it's 24.
Yeah, so other things are taken out.
Right.
It's pretty complex, and we have a whole binder.
Okay.
I'm glad to take a look at it with you.
Okay, well, it is what it is. If there's something
Some
taken
things
out,
come
it's
out,
fine.
some things
Yeah.
come in, yeah, but it gets normalized because of that comparison across for that excess cost piece, right? But yeah, I'd be glad to kind of walk.
It is what it is. I mean, I didn't, that's what they do. They take, some things don't count.
Right,
in the-
they do
in
remove
the-
certain.
In the
things,
numerator. Yeah.
Whatever they might be.
Okay.
I will say what they do include, so it is our budget, and they do include donations. Right, so that's something I mentioned that our booster club donates about 500,000 a year.
Oh, that's
Our
interesting.
PTCs will donate, 350 to.
Well, they should do that,
$500,000 a
actually.
year.
That makes
Yeah,
that
it
makes
is.
sense.
It's good, but it does.
Had that.
It does include that. It does include in kind,
Yeah.
right? So if
Yeah.
we have we do have in kind with the town on certain things.
But it only takes the numerator up.
It does.
Are athletics included?
Yes, I believe so.
The cost should be higher. than-
Yep.
anyway.
And that's a savings for us because of, again, the booster club and, there's the balance there with their payments, but still.
But we do in kind in sports. We've
Yeah,
always
we
had a
do,
lot of- Yeah.
Well, and we have like in kind with the town, with the finance or Park and Rec, for instance, there's in kind with that with technology and some other
I
things.
I think the message for this group, though, not that it totally matters, is that's not what we spend per student,
No.
Correct.
because they do it differently, which
This
is
is
fine. but
all-
We spend
this is
close
all
to
equalized
24,
across.
which is good.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
But by being at the lower end with that cost share for the expensive students, it actually is, I mean, it's self-reinforcing. You get a better reimbursement for expensive students than if you were at the high end. I mean, it's just
That's right.
simple math.
Right.
So
So,
it's somewhat self-reinforcing
Right.
for the expensive kids.
right. So that's your benefit because
Yeah.
then your 4.5 times is less than.
Yeah.
And so what actually, for what it's worth, some of the very small towns, in northern Connecticut are really struggling under the weight of this because they are so small that their per pupil might be 36,000.
And they've got to go 4.5
Then they have
times
to go
36.
4.5 times, and they're just never hitting it.
So you need some economies of scale. in
So,
terms of-
yeah, so there may be looking to change that formula in one way or another. We'll see.
Yeah,
We've
it
been talking
doesn't,
about
it
it for
doesn't
years.
sound logical
hope
to
not.
me. I mean, it's
Hope they
just.
don't change.
How many districts are there? There's 169
169.
towns. That's how
Well,
many towns.
169
are.
districts.
Oh, is
Every
it
town's a
districts
district?
and towns?
No, did I say town?
Yeah. you
There's
said
169 towns. I don't know how
Yeah.
many districts there are. That's probably more like 120, I would guess, or 100.
No, I believe.
It's always 169, and I think it includes the regions.
It does include the regionals. Yeah.
So every town,
Town or region, or school, a school.
whatever.
district.
School
Okay.
districts.
A school
Yeah,
district.
school districts.
Hmm,
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, we generally use the 169. Yeah, okay.
So maybe Sean, maybe you might know, but is this obviously our number doesn't include debt service, right? For BOE expense, capital
Right,
expense.
none of them do.
None of them, so
No.
that's consistent.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
great.
consistent. Yep, that's removed out. Mhm.
Great.
That could be the difference, by the way.
What?
Yep.
Well, we gotta pay our stuff. Other people get a little bit more money from the state.
Oh,
for
yeah,
capital.
well, that's key. Yeah.
But it does, but again, I don't want to belabor the point, but there are different ways that districts make some decisions, right? So for instance, in our excess cost calculation, we have in our budget the gross number. So if we expect to spend $1 million, we budget for $1 million, even if we're anticipating, say, 300,000 back. Other districts, just about every other district nets it out. So they'll budget for the 700,000 instead of the million. So that actually increases our budget a little bit in the comparison. But it's the right thing to do because the town, as you know, receives the excess cost grant. And then if there's an overrun in this specific account, for whatever reason, we are able to access that and protect the rest of the budget. So it's worked out very, very well. But those decisions you make locally based on what works best for your district. Make sense? So we're proud of that. We've worked hard. And a couple of the ways that we've been able to accomplish that, we've made some strategic decisions through the years around insourcing specific functions. Things like our printing. So, we have a print house. We're up to almost 70% of our copying now in the district running through the print shop, which is a lower cost per page. And just makes sense, right? So our teachers are able to send a PDF to the print shop. They'll print it for them, wrap it for them, and have it in their mailbox the next day or by the end of the day if they send it in the morning. So it's really quick turnaround. We've got it staffed with our own folks. One of our van drivers staffs that primarily. And we're able to get the materials there. So it reduces the waste, it saves costs, reduces our use of paper. Our maintenance, similarly, we've got our HVAC, our electrician, our carpenter, plumber. We've got that expertise on staff. So when something breaks, something goes wrong, that orb just needs to be maintained. Folks right on staff can do that expert work. And we're not calling in people from outside who don't own the equipment. And there's always an upcharge, when you're doing that. So we're able to work with our folks.
Are they full-time?
They are.
How many of them are there now?
The goal has been 5.
I
I'm not
thought
sure that
we
we're
had
fully
that
staffed.
discussion, yeah.
But yeah, 5 or 6 is the target, depending upon who's out there and who we can find. The market's been tough this last couple of years. We've been without an HVAC person for a little while, but I think we just hired an excellent person.
Just got
Yep.
one and it's really tremendous.
Yeah.
An HVAC.
Yep.
really?
Yep. And you figure, again, it's around 1 million square feet of space that we're maintaining with,
Oh, yeah.
Going all the way around.
Oh, yeah. It's a lot.
with 5,000 or so daily occupants. There's a lot. There's
Yeah,
a lot.
gotta have too hot or too cold somewhere.
Yeah.
every day, I'm sure.
Each and every day.
Especially
Yeah.
lately.
Each and every day. It's good.
Yeah, and they're excellent, they are, and they're around in our schools, and certainly in the summer, they're able to perform that kind of level 1 kinds of work, things that you'd have to hire somebody else for, so we're able to save some money there. I know I mentioned it last year too, but it's worth mentioning our special education transportation. Because of the effort it takes to manage this and to run this, but really it saves us a significant amount of money. The white vans, and I know there's an investment that the town makes annually as these age out and we continue to keep the fleet rolling. But most districts I'm aware of don't have their own special education fleet. We do, and they wind up paying often over $100,000 per child to transport them over the course of for 180 days for an outplacement. And we are able to use our vans where they can do multiple runs. The drivers are available for us during the day. So they'll do supervision. There's a driver who works in our math lab to help out kids at the high school in math. And, they're part of, I mentioned this, the print shop, they're part of the school and the community that give us that additional service when they're not driving versus simply paying somebody to just drive the car back and forth. So we have that value that we get out of them, but also it's significantly less expensive than paying an outside company to provide that transportation. Again, I was talking to a colleague not too long ago, and she was telling me that a single outplacement that she just experienced, it was $125,000 for 180 days of transporting back and forth to a single placement.
It's
That's-
gotten,
that's-
we've looked at this for a long time.
It's very-
gotten worse.
Yeah,
It's
it
gotten to
has,
be
and it's
more,
very
yeah.
challenging for school districts to navigate all this, right, and to manage all this. And so we do it in-house, and if we do have students that exceed the threshold as we're doing this, they're still eligible for the reimbursement and everything else. So,
Mhm.
that's all still there, but it's on top of all of the cost savings, there's also the benefit of the relationships. It's not unusual for a driver to have the same student that they're driving for many years. They get to know the child, the family, they get to know the teaching assistant. They're a part of that child's life in a meaningful way. And that's really important, you know, when, especially some of our students who need help the most. So that value that you add by having them as New Canaan Public School employees, that doesn't show up in the budget, but it is a part of why we do what we do. And then again, some other ways that we've been driving down those operational costs. I mentioned before, you know, sort of making environmentally friendly decisions that are also cost effective. And we've been doing that for many years. And First Selectman's been an excellent partner with this really from the beginning. We are, as far as I know, the only school in the area that's running a fleet of buses on propane. We started that move 7 years ago. Our entire fleet is all propane. The benefits, you know, they run clean. There's almost no exhaust. They run silent. There's almost no sound. The engines, the wear and tear of the engines is significantly less. It's propane burns so clean. You don't have all the gunk in the engine and all the things that you get from diesel. And they start at almost any temperature because they're under pressure. They'll go all the way down to negative 48 degrees, turn the key and they'll fire right up. Where diesel, you're running those overnight. You know, you don't get quite as many miles out of a gallon. You know, the efficiency isn't quite the same, but your price is different. You know, your price is a little bit lower. So we save a little bit on that too. So all in, you know, we made this move well before anyone was talking about electrifying buses. And we'll let that conversation go on wherever it's going to go. We feel very confident in the system that we have and the decisions we've made with the propane buses, and feel that they really are serving us very well. And if you're ever behind one, I don't know if you've been behind one at a stop sign or somewhere else, listen closely, roll down your window and listen. You won't hear a thing. Pretty amazing. And you compare that to the diesel buses where you gave a big berth, a wide berth, and didn't get too close. Yeah. So it really does. You can just tell,
Do that.
you know, as it burns.
So does the bus company keep them longer with us?
Yeah. So we renewed our contract with DATCO. And part of the reason we're able to negotiate as good of a deal as we did was because those buses are in such good shape. So the same buses are going to continue to serve us because the engines are burning very clean. They have another district upstate where they're running propane, so they knew sort of some of what they were getting into with it. But yeah, it's really been a great move for us. It's paid off
Did
very
we
well.
bid it out or just renegotiate?
We renegotiated.
We didn't look.
Oh,
at
no,
it.
no. Those that are bidding are getting double digit.
Oh, my
Offers.
gosh.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we locked in 2% a year for the next 5
We
years.
did that a long time ago, but it's.
Well,
still-
that was
it's
last year.
still-
So this is the
No, no.
first year of our 5-year contract.
Oh, that's what I mean, though, but we've used them for.
Yeah, we've
more
had that for
contracts.
some
Yeah,
time.
Several, yeah.
And you know, we can get into the specifics a little more, but on the bus contract, for what it's worth, in the spring, we negotiated that contract and we really sat with them to talk it all through. And it was the propane buses, it was the goodwill that we and the company have together. We were one of the few districts that really didn't attack the bus companies during the shutdown in 2020. You know, we really said, we're going to treat you like professionals and honor our contract, and you're going to honor the contract with us. That if we need you to do things, and we did. There were some drivers that came in and helped to pack some food. They helped to do some delivery. They worked from times here and there, and we treated them. You know, we honored our contract because that's what we believe is the right thing to do. Whereas many districts were looking to break contract and to do other things that we didn't feel was the right way to approach the situation that we were all thrust into. So the goodwill there, the propane buses, and the drivers that we have like working here. And that's another question, Maria, that you know about around staffing, right? So many districts, we hear all the time about districts that are in dire straits because of their bus drivers, that they can't get the kids to school. Their drivers might be running 2 runs where they'll fill up the bus, drop those kids off, then go back up, pick up another round of kids for the same school and drop them off 45 minutes later. And so the start times and everything else are all messed up. We're very fortunate. We don't have that problem because really the yard that we have with Roy and with Howard, with everybody down there, the work that they're doing, they're creating the right culture. Matter of fact, I went down there not too long ago and thanked them for the shift in the school start times. Right, and met with them, talked to them a little bit and thanked them because we asked them to change their runs and to meet all new kids and all new families. And, you know, we think about everything and the impact for everybody in our school, but it also impacted our drivers. Many of our drivers have been running the same runs for many years, and they get to know their families, get to know the kids and parents, and, you know, have meaningful relationships with them. So we shifted that around. They went into it in a positive way, and it's another one of the reasons why it's working well. So. On top of that, you know, the solar that we have at 4 of our 5 schools installed, and we're looking to do the installation at the high school in the next couple of months. So that's exciting. It's phase 1 at the high school. It won't be the whole roof, but it'll be a good chunk. It's an enormous roof, as you know, so there's a great opportunity up there. The cogeneration plant over at the middle school is up and running. And so that's a really interesting and I think wise approach to energy management and control. So essentially there's a plant that's burning natural gas that is generating electricity to offset the use over at Saks. So we're running a power plant essentially as it's spinning and running a little turbine. Additionally, the hot water, because heat is a byproduct of electricity generation, right? That hot water is going into the heating system over at Saks to help to offset some of the need for the boilers to burn and to heat up that water. So some of the heating system is managed by that as well. So it's really, it's CHP, combined heat and power. It's really, I think, an innovative way to use the natural gas resource and offset the electricity costs and bring down even some more of the natural gas costs on the boilers. So again, First Selectman's been a great partner with all this. The last thing on here, and I could, again, this is, to me, this is a great story. I've been telling my wife about this because I think it's important, right? Because it's not just saving us money. It's really being good stewards of the environment. It's these are renewable approaches like propane, for instance, since it's not a fossil fuel. It's like if there's a propane spill, it's not a hazmat situation, unlike diesel or other things. So it's clean, you know, it's a clean energy solution. The other last is the LED lighting retrofit, which doesn't sound very exciting. But when you have 1 million square feet of space, give or take, changing out the lights can save you hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, you know, on your electricity. So if you look at our electricity, it's actually trended down over the last couple of years. Even this year to next, we're going down $100,000. Now, I don't know, but I feel like my electricity at home is going to go up 100,000. So it's pretty amazing, right? When you think about what we're getting. And so those are some of the tangible outcomes of the investments that Board of Finance, Board of Ed, Town Council, we've all been making together in the schools and in the spaces.
Do you have a dollar amount for this page? And we've talked about this before, but it's now online, right? We talked about LED, we're there. We talked about the CHP.
Yep.
You've got it at scale. What, I mean, you don't have it today, it's fine, but what would that be? I think we should know, maybe you do know, what's the solar, what's the savings for each one of these?
Yeah, I'd be glad to break it out. I mean, as I mentioned, the electricity alone is going down 100,000. The expectation is down 100,000 next year.
But that's just 1 year to the next.
It is, but what would it have gone up?
That's the
without
point.
any
Yeah,
of these
exactly.
things, right?
That's right.
And
Be good to-
that's a calculation we'll play around with.
We should know what that is
Yeah.
because we spend a lot of money also. There's capital and
Definitely.
to invest, but it's now really delivering,
It
which
is.
is exciting, as you said.
It is. And that's one of the things I actually love about being superintendent, and being in this field. It's the long view, right? So the decisions we make now impact the district 5, 10, 15 years from now, right? So you get those cumulative benefits over time, and it's very exciting. Yeah, we'll work with that
It'd
because
be
I'd
good to- we
love
should
to-
know. It'd be good to know.
And that I should include in my article. So.
No, seriously.
It's a good add-on.
Especially if you can show it net of the capital
Yes.
expense.
Yep. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and there's little things too, like the LED lighting retrofit, that actually through on-bill financing paid for itself.
Right.
Right. So you finance it on bill and you work that through and the savings are rolled into. And so that's actually a very small investment as far as the town goes and the results, because, you know, they're incentivized also by the state and feds and others to bring down energy consumption. So, But yeah, we will work on that. So that'll be a fun time.
Very good story.
Yeah, the on-bill financing, it's typically, after incentive, it's only about 50% of the investment. But for no upfront capital, we get new LED upgrades. The savings that are driven as a result of that more than pay for the monthly payment. And, you know, we were able to prepay some of those
Great.
off. So it's all good news now. It hits the bottom line, which is great.
So with all that, I mean, you would think I was done, but now we sink our teeth into the budget itself. So as we develop the budget proposal for 23-24, there's a couple of themes that emerged in our discussions and conversations, and what are our goals in the budget as we pieced it together? Really, first and foremost is to balance the community's expectations of excellence with our long-term focus on efficiency, and to continue to provide a world-class education for all of our kids. I think the community rightly expects excellence of us, and that's something that excites all of us and gets us going, every day. It's investing in high leverage continuous improvements, and we'll touch base on a couple of those. High quality curriculum instruction and assessment. That's when I talk about the instructional core. That's the interchange and exchange between the student, teacher, and the content, right? That is the core of the work that we do. And then everything builds out from there. Of course, safety and security is on everyone's mind, and it's always on our minds in the district. So there's some resourcing here for on that ongoing work in that regard. I've also been meeting with the Board of Education, executive session, others. A security grant has recently been announced by the state. So we're developing our proposal around that security grant, and we'll be talking together in executive session about some of the details of that in the next month or so. And of course, last is to focus our resources on the areas of greatest student need, where we can have the greatest impact. So as we go into the next slide, which isn't a great slide, only because it's there's just too many numbers on the slide. But it is just that front page of our budget book itself. When you look at that budget summary by object, we'll slice this a couple of different ways. Another thing I don't love about this slide, and even the budget comparisons, where you have to compare against 2020 expended and 2021 expended, 22 expended. Those years were still being impacted by the pandemic to various degrees, right? Certainly 20 expended, because that was the 1920 year that had the close and the shutdown. 2021 school year was where there were hybrid. There was quite a few student absences and other things we had to work through. 22 expended, we were working our way out of all of that, but still experiencing changes in programming. For instance, in 21 expended, or 20 expended and 21, like athletics, there was no athletic transportation costs. We weren't able to run our sports programs. So the expenditures were very different when you start to look at that. So if you didn't have a spring sports program in 2020, so significant chunk of money, buses, programming was not expended. Same with 2021, that program was severely curtailed, had to be, given everything going on. 22 was a little closer, but so I don't love it because the comparisons aren't great, but it still gives you your expanded bottom line. I know it's also a slide we're used to looking at and talking about, so I'm glad to have it on there. And but what I'd like to do is just take a moment, if you'll entertain me, to we went back to 2018, just picked a number. I had the actuals in front of me, and picked a date prior to the pandemic, and I thought 2018 would be fair. And we just looked at where have we trended since 2018. And I know the Board of Finance likes to pull out the internal services deposit. So we did that here, for this comparison. In the book, sometimes it says employee benefits. That's not only the internal services deposit, right? That's the roll up of taxes and the internal services deposit, a few other, smaller things around benefits. In this, it's just pulling out the ISF deposit. So if we look in 2018, our actual expenditures was the 75.8. This year's budget request without the ISF is the 88,647. That's an average annual growth rate of 2.82%, right? So essentially, again, I'm English major, so I always like to double check the math. Granted by Sean, it's 88 minus the 75 divided by 6. That's, getting the percentage and then dividing it by 6. So it's the average annual growth rate. It's not compounded. So if you did, Sean, being the mathematician, went year by year and figured out exactly what that compounded rate and things would be. And actually the number's a little bit lower if you do it that way, because it builds on itself. This is just the straight average annual growth rate, which I found out has an acronym AAGR, but I won't go down. Did a little research here. So also looked at the inflation calculator, just punched in $100 as of June or July 1 of 2018. What's it worth as of December of this year? It was worth $117, 17 change. So divide that by 6, you get to the 2.97, right? The average annual growth rate. So just looking at the inflation adjusted numbers, I think we're doing pretty well. Pulling out the insurance, doing the same. Our 2018 actual expenditure was the 11.2 million. And again, this is the deposit into the ISF. The request this year for the Board of Ed is the 15.2. That's an average annual growth rate of the 5.89. If you assume an average annual insurance trend of 6.5, and I talked to Joe about this as a national number, you can't find this like you can find the inflation number very easily, but Joe's expertise came in handy on this just to validate. So again, we're trending below the average annual growth rate for the insurance trend. So it's 2018, it's a long time ago, but just to give some context, I think I want to control out the variables we've all experienced over the last couple of 3 years. Really, that's what I was looking to do. So I could have used 19, but I had 18. I figured an extra year wouldn't hurt. That was the whole thing, but just some context. Helpful?
Excellent. We like it a lot because it's reality versus budget. Well, but the only difference is we budget off a budget, and that's the problem, right? So that's always been but this is really the way we like to look at it, is when we sent the guidance was based on this kind of thinking, right, Chris? I mean, that's basically what we did.
Yeah.
No, this is great.
Except that we're doing actual 18s against budget 24s. So there's a lot of noise in there.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's right.
Right, because and this is the proposed 24. And we do our best. You're right. You always have to go budget to budget, essentially, because you're always doing the next year. We're not doing a 2-year budget, but we do our projected to try to get that as close as we can by doing the reforecast. Right. So we do our projections out, which tries to clean up some of the noise, which we'll talk about a little bit with like the salary adjustments.
What we try to do is go back to your last actual year and then work off that on a percentage. Your 2.82 is very close to our 2.9.
Sure.
We've been using, and we come up, when you do that, you'll come up with a different number. So
I think the
we can
challenge
talk
with
about that,
I'm sorry.
in this process.
The challenge going back 2 years is the COVID. The way
We went to
that
19.
different programs were.
We started ours at
impacted.
19.
Pardon?
What you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm
started
talking
at-
about what's on this chart.
He
Oh, yeah, I
he
went to-
started in 18.
Yeah.
This is
What
FY
we did
18.
started in 19, so the next year, 77.7 was the base, not
Okay.
75. So, but it was the same idea, but just
Gotcha,
1 year
gotcha.
clip closer.
Sure, yeah, this is the FY 18, so it's the 2017-18 year. And there's no
That's right.
reason I.
No,
the only
no,
reason
it's
I picked
fine.
it was I looked to
Fine.
see what I had, how far back did it go?
Good.
It started at 18, and I put it in. But we can put any other, I can do it any other way. But that's because of the way that the pandemic impacted programming, whether VPA programming, athletics, transportation, those things, again, they impact the budget because it cascades. If you're not running your sports program in the spring, it's more than just your coaching. It's also your bus transportation. It's also your officials. There are other things that you're not expensing, which then, you're saving in the budget and you're turning back. So that would bring you into your actuals well below your budget in that one area. And that's just one example of the same with VPA, the same with other things. That's all. But, we can, as you say, you can do it 100 different ways and see, but I tried to be as clean as I could.
Okay.
So another way just to look at the budget in general is we split up by object, and that's a Connecticut state requirement. As you do that, there are 8 objects in there. Salaries is of course the biggest. So salaries plus benefits get us a little over 82% of the overall budget. Salaries are in the 60s, low 60%, and the rest of the benefits there. Again, that's all in on the benefits. So that's taxes, that's the ISF. That's because that is the state system. What is it? The book, chart of accounts from the state. As we piece these things through. But again, you see that that's significant, that's most. And then purchase services, which includes our transportation and our outplacements. So those are the 2 big drivers there. And you take those and you've got very few things left.
And no debt expense.
Nope.
Yep.
Again, this is the state generated piece. We don't build that expense into the budget. Although we do a little bit in this one. But I'm not going to be talking too much about that in the move to 220. Okay. The again, kind of overall percentage change in each of the objects as we go through. And I can move a little bit quicker here because I know you've got the books and you've got the details and things. But I do want to just take a quick moment to share. So another way we look at this is through cost centers. Right, so this is just important to look at. It's a data point that we use to assure that we are balancing our investments across the 3 elementary schools. And then Saxon, the high school you see are around the same size. We pull out athletics and VPA, those would actually are part of the high school, the athletics at least. But then you see our investment like curriculum instruction is our investment in that work. PPS is pupil services, technology. And you see each of those different cost centers. So in the binder that you have, each cost center has a tab. And we drill into each one that way, but you can see the balance. And of course, we pull the benefits out again because we just don't separate. We don't budget it that way. We don't budget it by building that way. And the transportation, that's our system of. So the biggest driver in all this, of course, is enrollment, and I'll move through these again pretty quickly. Stop me if you want, but this is historical enrollment. And I think key takeaway here, the biggest year we had over the last 10 was 16-17, where we were at 42-10. But I think more importantly, it's very consistent. Right? We're going up a couple, down a couple. We're within about 100 student window or so, over the last 10 years, pretty consistently. And because the number of students is distributed across the 13 grades, it's not like we have one really small grade that comes in where you would make it shift, any meaningful shift in your staffing models. Looking forward this year up to 10 years, you see a little bit of a different picture. Well, actually a significantly different picture, but here are the caveat, right? These projections become less accurate the further you go out. So with that caveat though, what we're seeing here is cause some, I don't want to say consternation, but cause some reflection. And we've decided to contract with a second demographer to have the results triangulated. Because what you see here is in the 26-27 year, you see a pretty significant jump of about 125 kids, and that's all in kindergarten. And it's based on a number of known births. So that's based on the number of kids that were born in 2021. And so what they do is project that out 5 years and anticipate that they'll be going into kindergarten. And those are the kids that are born in New Canaan in Connecticut hospitals, right? So if you're born in Connecticut and you live in New Canaan, you're going to be one of the 201 or so children who were born in 2021. What they do then is they look back historically, they go back over 40 years, they look at what the birth rate compared to the enrollment in kindergarten 5 years later, what that looks like. And if the birth rate is lower than the enrollment, then there's a positive factor. And it might be 1.2, 1.4, 1.6 that they apply to the birth rate. And that's the in-migration. If the birth rate is higher than your kindergarten enrollment, it would be less than 1. And they use that as the factor. And that would be out-migration. We typically have a good deal of in-migration in the elementary schools. And we have a jump again, typically that goes from K to 1. So we know the births, we have the births, we know the number. So as they're looking at the math, but what we don't know for sure is that factor, right? So if with a higher birth rate, if we usually go about 140, if we're at 200, let's say, with that higher number of births, will that lead to a lower factor in 26, 27, or will the factor be consistent? And if it is, then this would be the number that we would project. So that's why we're bringing in another demographer to kind of pull this apart for us, because long and short of it is we're really not equipped for 125 more kindergartners. And then if you look across and you see the 27-8, 28-9, you see an upward trend. And by the end of the 10 years, you're over 4,500 kids. Now, the highest we had been was that single year at 42 back in 16-17. So, you're going 300 kids higher. But it's a 10-year projection. So I have to lots and lots and lots of caveats.
Yeah, and that assumes you don't have just a one-off big class. You're assuming you get a couple
Correct.
classes building and who knows, right?
We don't know.
Who knows?
We always have the anecdotal, or, and then everyone, we're all talking about new people in town and people moving in, but you don't know, right? You see what you look for. And if you think it's there, you may see it. What I really need to do is meet with the realtors again. And really have a hard
Maria?
look at them. They tend to get it right.
Now, question about, have you looked at maybe the families who are already in system? If this is a younger sibling, like you can probably quantify a little bit of what's happening if they have younger siblings. Is that sort of
We
captured?
try. It's not an easy target to capture, to be honest. Like when a family comes to enroll a kindergartner, we're always asking them, are there other brothers or sisters or other things? But it's not an easy thing to capture so much. We do reach out to the preschools. we talk with them. Our kindergarten enrollment right now, for instance, is on pace with what we'd expect it to be. There was a bump early and we got nervous, but then it sort of even back out. And we think the bump was there because we did a really good job advertising the enrollment. For the first time, we're on Instagram and we had Twitter and we're using social media, and it brought people out with a QR code and they could register. So those numbers look about what we expect. But we do what we can. It's just not, it's an inexact science no matter
Yeah.
what.
It's challenging
So-
though, too, because the preschools have a cap and limit as to how many they can have in their programs,
Sure.
right? So, I mean, they're all pretty much maxed out. So you don't know what's above that
Yeah.
number.
Well, and this number doesn't include, I can go back here for what it's worth. These numbers don't include projects that aren't completed yet. Right, so they're not looking at any projects that are in the works that might be online between now and a couple of years from now or whatever else that could bring more families into the district. They're really just, I mean, they assume that has been consistent because they look back 3 and 5 years. They look at what the trend has been, other than kindergarten, they look at what the grade level trend has been, and then they create that factor in or out migration at each grade level. And then kindergarten, it's the births, but they really don't look at housing starts because they know that it's just too unpredictable to try to anticipate what year it might come online and if it's going to come to fruition anyway. The group that we're contracting with, they take a deeper dive and they've been in contact with planning and zoning. They've asked about projects in the works and their timelines and the makeups. Are they 1, 2, or 3 bedroom places, things like that. So they are going to be more precise, I believe, in the work that they're doing, which is good. I mean, NASDAQ serves our purposes when things are what we anticipate them to be. When we see something that we didn't anticipate, we want a deeper dive, and that's what we're doing.
2 quick questions. Did you have a question? So we're sitting here at 4068.
Yep.
Right? Let's say this is perfectly accurate.
Mm,
We're good until 27, 28-ish,
Until 26, 27.
26, 27.
Because of the kindergarten.
So 26, 27, and then I guess the question is, working backwards, when do we have to plan for what? If this was perfectly accurate?
Yeah.
That's I mean, you don't have to answer today, but that'll be that's really what we need to get our heads around.
Yeah.
Expanding a school, is there something that has to happen? And when do we have to have that?
I think we do have room in the high school
We have some.
and Saks, right?
Well, this is the point.
Yeah.
It's if the 125 is really in kindergarten, it's the elementary
That's where
school.
they arrive.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean,
So-
But
So we have,
you use,
we've done a really good job of not getting into solutions until we really can define the problem. So the question around.
There's the
timeline is
problem.
Really
Exactly.
important,
That's right.
So we anticipate having the results of the deeper dive in March.
No, just assume this is perfect. Assume
Okay,
this is
so
the answer.
assuming this is perfect.
Yeah.
As we, if it confirms all of that.
Yep.
Then we really would take March, April, May, June to start to really start formulating a couple of scenarios to bring forward in the
A proposal,
fall. Yeah, it's just scenarios like
but you need that many years.
if it's going to come true, right? If we're going to anticipate it, depending upon the scope of what we're doing, if we're looking at expanding, if we're looking at a
3 elementary
construction
schools,
project,
that's
that's
right.
going to take some time,
Yeah,
right? That's going to be, especially with the state, we need probably 2.5, 3.5 years to do that
Oh, there's your answer.
Yep.
Okay.
for a construction type project. If it's portables,
2,
it's a
3.
different conversation,
So that's a year or 2 from now. You're in you got to be
which means we've got to be in the
Construction.
conversation ASAP.
next year.
How
Yeah,
much
you're-
room do we have in the elementary schools
Interesting.
now?
Really
Extra
don't
room.
Have much, to be
We,
honest.
we have talked about this so many years, I would think none, but I thought
Yeah,
I
because
should
we've got
ask.
our preschool over at West, right? So we
Right.
would have had, without that, we'd have some capacity there, but we've got the preschool over there.
Interesting.
Over at South, we've got, our enrollment has been steady around 500,
Yeah,
give or take. And over at East, we are really maxed out. That's
Are you?
by far our biggest school.
And that's, I think,
Oh.
one of the questions that I had was about balancing them out, because definitely East is
Redistricting.
bursting at the seams and West is, from appearance, is a little bit less enrolled. So I think there has to be some way of, knowing, anticipating where these kids are going to be living
Yep.
and then trying to rebalance all of it.
So the part of the new group that's doing this for us does it by district. So they do zone in on neighborhoods and district and take that deep of a dive into it. So that will help inform whether or not we have to do something like that.
Yeah.
For sure. Good.
Would the preschool be moved out to just a separate location?
Pros and cons to that. You know, you typically would want it with a school somewhere because of the resources between the playgrounds and the gyms and the cafeteria and, you know, the library and everything else that's there for those little guys. There's also the administrative support that they need. You know, they're in the building now, and the budget does request a part-time preschool director, but it's a 0.5. So the principal at West, the assistant principal and our district administrator are all, you know, still involved with that too. So it would be difficult to be a standalone, not in a school somewhere.
Brian, was it originally at the high school? Do I have that right?
It was at South.
It was at South, but before South, wasn't it at the high
Could have
school?
been. That I'm not aware of. I know it was at South
Preschool?
before West.
I don't remember that.
I'm not,
Really?
we have a preschool program at the high school. That's run by one of our teachers, and our kids teaching it, and they learn
Okay.
that. You might be thinking that.
Okay, maybe that's
That's still there,
Maybe
but
that's
that's
what
only
I'm
a couple
thinking
days
of.
a week, and it's
Okay.
really, it's to teach the high school kids how to run a preschool and how to be teachers in that. It's an elective class.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a great program, and I would encourage everybody to, you know, send their kids there, but yeah. it's
It
definitely-
shifted from west to east. That's interesting.
Well, the
Yeah. because
population
it used
size.
to be- West just used to be the biggest
Yeah.
concern, yeah.
Yeah, and then so the preschool is there now. So you're right about
That's
the
right,
numbers
yeah.
when you look at the enrollments at the buildings. But you've always got to check to see at West, does it include the preschool numbers? So
yeah,
you can typically
that's-
add 50 students whenever you see the West numbers, add 50 to get to their actual, because the preschool is often taken out if it's a K4.
Mhm.
You know, to put it in perspective, I know that there was certainly before COVID, other towns were seeing their enrollment declining, and we were kind of hanging in there when other people weren't. And I know that, you know, there's been a big shift of the appeal to the metro New York area. Do you know, are like the Wiltons in the world, are they seeing a rebound in their enrollment? Or are they still like
I've
struggling? This
asked
is
just
kind of a nice
anecdotally.
problem to have for us, that we have such a vibrant young group of people coming in.
It's a good question. Is Darien saying the same thing as Wilton?
Yeah, but I know for a fact, there was a number of the schools nearby that were seeing enrollment
That's right.
challenges. And we, you know, even when ours was kind of flat, it was like, hey, this is great.
Right.
And I mean, we have to plan for this, but I think it's very exciting for the town.
Yep.
That it's such an appealing place for families to be.
Yeah, well, I do know Westport is experiencing an increase as well.
Yeah.
And they're going through that. I was surprised to learn that we now have more students in New Canaan than Wilton has in their system, which is a shift. You know,
Yep.
when 7, 8 years ago, more students
Interesting.
from Wilton
Yeah.
than we have here.
It is a
So
shift.
that has shifted.
Not everyone is having the upswing we have. I don't
No,
think.
and I think you're right. And I think part of that blessing and curse is we've been consistent instead of going down. So now if there is going to be a bump, we're going
right.
off a higher base.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And you know, again, if these trends do prove out, are the bulk, these all 300 plus students that are an increase over what we've had will be concentrated at the lowest level,
Right.
right? So they'll come in K1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you know, 4. So
It's a big plus.
that's a different kind of solution than a single grade or an increase that's spread across different grades. Right. So it's,
Yeah, but I do think our older grade capital plan has some flex. It's obviously our younger grades don't.
well, what's happened, I'm sure you remember, right? The decision was made years ago to move the 5th grade out of the elementary
Mhm.
schools over to Saks.
Mhm.
And expand them and have them K4, right?
Yep.
So that decision, which, you know, was made at the time, now we've got 3 large elementary schools.
Yep.
And they are large. I mean, to be an elementary school over 500 students is a big elementary school.
That's a big one.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And ours are, right, as we look at them. So, and the locations may or may not, again, we're not getting the solutions, but we have to look at where they're located and look at what the options are.
Mm.
Right? I don't know if are they conducive to portables? Are they conducive to something else? Is there a different solution? Is there a project? We don't know. You know, that's a next level of work once we truly define the problem. And even if the projections we get triangulate all this and validate it and literally go the same, it's still a projection. You know, so we've got to just talk it through and make sure that we're all on the same page and what the best solution is.
So the kindergarten right now at East is 20 kindergartners per teacher, and it's 15 and 16 respectively at East and at South and West, right? So you would think that if you're gonna have 20 students at each of the other schools, that would take 40 or so of the students could be allocated to those schools, so you'd need about 80.
Well,
Am I-
so,
that
you know,
right?
the way that the schools are zoned by, you know, neighborhood in different regions of the town. So it's really, that is a whole, that's a big thing, right? To start moving and redistricting. So that's a long conversation if it's. the right
Not
thing to
tonight's
do.
agenda.
Kind of like start times.
Right, exactly.
I bet you want another one of those.
I'm not sure My start times calluses will hold up for every.
That was so good.
Move on.
It's very emotional
Yeah.
and something that, you know, you go into very transparently and open and we talk through, but
It's a lot of.
as you look at those numbers though, like so at our current building, 6 sections per grade is really your maximum as you sort of go around.
Yeah.
And you look at East and there's about likely to be 6 across the board, right? When we look at at the in-migration, what we expect. Little room in a couple of other spots, like I said, but not much.
Okay.
So we'll see. Okay. You're looking at the time. I hope you're not regretting.
No, I'm anticipating this next page. I'm hoping it's the pie
Yes,
chart.
Yes.
No, it's not.
Oh, no, I can
No.
move right through this. So this just
Oh.
shows where
Right.
the concentration of kids in
Yeah.
there we go. All right.
Yeah.
We like the color. This staffing distribution, I think the key here is the vast majority of our staff are forward facing with kids, you know, every day. Our classroom teachers, teaching assistants, our specials teachers, student support services, the other services provided to children, our administrators, I should move them around. But we look at, you know, sort of that classroom support, again, it's investing in the instructional core. And it's the way it should be, right? We should spend most of our money on teachers.
So is that the way to look at this is you take I thought the classroom teacher slice of the pie looked really small as a
But-
result, but you're adding TAs.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And special teachers.
So specials, add your specials teachers, right? TAG are the next biggest, and they're all working with kids every day.
Yeah, right.
But this classroom teachers really are just your homeroom teachers at your elementary levels, right? And then your content area teachers at your high school.
Okay.
And middle school, your team teachers. So then when you add specials teachers in
Mhm.
there, that's where you're getting, you know, your art, your music, all of your electives, all of those other pieces that are all there, all teachers. And then when you get in student support services, you're talking about your school counselors,
Okay.
those, and
What's other services? That's just,
other services are your pupil support, psychologists, social
that's like
workers.
65%, 70-ish, almost 75% of the chart is what you just described.
Right there,
Okay.
all certified
Okay.
faculty,
Is other
not the teaching
services,
assistants. the others.
PT, OT, is that in, other services like the,
They are. Look in the
It's
budget,
okay.
it should be working out, but it's a very small, that's a small number.
okay.
Whatever they're rolled in there, we've got a couple of the BCBA's. a couple of ours.
If you took that group we just talked through, say, call it 70% of the total versus 30, how has that split been over the last 4 or 5 years that you've, 5, 6 years that you've just
Mhm.
walked through?
It's been consistent. We've built up our campus monitor program, as you know, right, over the years. So that's one that is
Yeah.
that light blue at the top that's there. Generally, we've had a TA move into a teaching position, so that was a net zero. You know, we've had a Melinda, who was a curriculum specialist, move into an administrator. So you have that move, but it's still a net zero in your overall increase. We really, other than that, haven't had significant, you know, shifts in our numbers. As far as the balancing goes, it has been the majority of the resources have gone into the classroom.
Great.
So in the budget, we do have a couple of new positions that we've been talking about and working through. The first is a 1.0, we're calling it a classroom coach. This really is related to what we're talking about before a little bit around the regulation and some of what we're seeing with kids and some of the challenges academically and, you know, so when they hit up against some challenge or some resilience. And what we're looking for here is an individual who is very likely already on staff, who would be placed on special assignment, who would work with teachers across the 3 elementary grades in order to help them establish the kind of classroom community that's best for all kids, to work individually with kids as needed, to help them to learn those skills of regulation. You know, we've, as a district, we've come to learn and to accept the belief that when a student isn't doing what we expect and ask them to do, it's because they don't have the skills to do it. It's really not because it's skill, not will. is the phrase.
Mm.
You know, so we want to build those skills with our kids, with our young kids, and we feel that having someone really dedicated to working, coaching teachers in this and working with some kids here and there, and working with families as well on some of these skills, that will make a difference for us. Because as you can imagine, in a class of 20 students, say you have 20 third graders, if there's a challenge, behavioral challenge in that room, it can throw the whole thing off for all the kids. You know, so we want to build the understanding there. We're going to see how it goes. We, the principals in the beginning, we talked about having one per building and thought, gosh, this is a pilot. Let's start with one and let's see how it goes. And, you know, it may be the kind of thing that we do for a couple of years and we find that over time, we've built the capacity we need and gotten to a certain point, and that person goes back into the classroom. It also is meant to help some of our newest teachers who are doing great, working hard and fabulous teachers, but because of the experience of the last couple of years, their pre-service wasn't the same in many cases as we had traditionally been. If a teacher's learning a student teach in a hybrid class or on Zoom or, you know, different environments, it just was different. And so we feel like having somebody who's really looking for and focused on this and working with staff around this, it'll make a difference for our kids, for all kids. And again, it's about building the capacity. So that's the classroom coach position. I mentioned the preschool director. That's only a 0.5, and it's going to be fully funded out of the IDEA grant, which is not a COVID related temporary grant. The IDEA is the federal grant that's used to pay for some of the special education costs. You know, special education flows from IDEA, which the feds are supposed to pay a certain proportion of, and they've never even come close to that. This is the grant that we get for that. And it's annual. You can carry it 2 years as you go. We get an allocation each year. And it's one of the few grants that's meant to supplant the budget because it's meant to be reimbursement or pay for special education services. So you're supposed to move things out of the budget that you would typically have and put in IDEA, and that's what we do. So we've been able to figure it out a way to fund this preschool director through that for the 0.5. So we won't hit the bottom line.
What else do we have that we have out of the IDEA?
IDEA.
Yeah.
There's
that
teaching assistant positions, some teacher positions, special ed teacher positions.
So what have we moved out to get this in?
We've reduced our TAs a little bit.
Oh, it's the TAs.
Mm.
But is
But-
that what really was supporting the classroom coach?
Oh, yeah, we
I
still
mean,
have, we still have a good cadre of folks. And the grant does adjust a little bit here and there. So, yeah, we had enough, and because there's a 2-year carry, you know, we can use some of that carry and and plan
Okay.
forward that way. So Bill is very strategic in his use of that
Yeah.
grant, and Darlene was before him. And again, it's 0.5, right? So as we look at what that total is going to be. Now, we did look across the region, and most districts around us do have a preschool director and a full-time preschool director. But we figured it's new. Let's start with a 0.5 and give it a try and see how it goes. We anticipate it's going to be very helpful, not just for the preschool, but for West principal, assistant principal, and for Bob Rousseau, who oversees, he's our special ed administrator at the elementary level, and he has preschool as part of his responsibility. And as you know, it's the preschool is state mandated 50-50 students in need of special education services and typicals. So we charge tuition with the typicals. So there is revenue here as well. And that's the goal, is always to get to 50-50. But with 50, we've got about 50 students, so about 25 students or so that are identified in need. And so those are PPTs and meetings and other things that are required as well. So having a director there makes an awful lot of sense. I think this will be a good investment for us, both in the preschool, but also in the special ed program K4. The little tweaks here and there. So one more, the Literacy Academy. And you see there's other slides, and I'll just skip right through them because I'm just talking about it all now. But Bill,
This was the grant funded, right?
well,
from last
partially,
year? Yeah.
partially
Yeah,
COVID grant,
it's
partially
shared.
budget.
Yeah.
And we're on a 3-year phase-in plan. And Bill Tesber, our assistant superintendent, and his team did a fabulous presentation last night to the board. Complete with videos and all. It was so good. I thought about taking the videos, but I couldn't introduce them well enough. But they really showed that this initiative is working, and we're going to continue to build it. And there's some data, some slides in there that show some results. It's early. This is just the first year. But essentially, the long and short of it is it uses a scientifically based approach called Orton Gillingham to provide intervention for students, our youngest students who are struggling learners. They may be dyslexic, there may be other things, but the lessons are highly structured. The science behind why we use, Orton Gillingham and the approach is very, very sound. And it really, it works them right through from phonics and phonemic awareness right through to comprehension. And again, the presentation was excellent last night. I encourage you to take a look. So what we're looking to do is add another position for special education teacher who will be trained by our in-house Orton Gillingham fellow on how to best deliver this. And that fellow is, she told us, I thought it was one of 100. She told us last night there are fewer than 90 in the country. She's worked on this for 7 years. And so she's just reaching that fellow status now. And she's training all of our elementary teachers and then going really deep with our special ed teachers. So what this will set up is where she'll be the sort of the director of the academy. There'll be one specialist at each elementary school. They'll be set up to service anywhere between 16 and 18 or so students at each of the schools. And they'll be, students will be identified through the special education process one way or the other. And they'll be receiving this intensive literacy instruction, reading instruction while they go through in order to prepare them to go on into the middle school and beyond. So it's really a very, I believe, thoughtful approach to a problem that exists everywhere, right? Where you've got these young learners who are really struggling for a variety of reasons, and they're just not getting it in the way that everybody else is getting it. So it really takes them through everything from, vowel sounds to right through to comprehension
That's huge.
and spelling and everything else.
So
It
how
really
many-
is. It's,
how many
if
do
you're
we-
interested at all, I really do encourage you to watch that presentation in about 20 minutes. And it really, especially the part with our fellow Jen doing the teaching where she shows the videos, just watching that alone.
This is
will give
last
you the
night's
chills. Yeah.
meeting? Okay,
I
how
can send
many
you
do
both.
we have in total in this literacy academy?
So right now, because it's just emerging, we've got about 13, 14 in the academy.
And how much of it is paid for in the
We have
funds that we had?
one teacher in the grant, one teacher in the budget. And we're looking to add a teacher into the budget this year.
And then so one more next year.
And then it'd be one more would roll out of the grant next year.
Right.
So it's 3 people, 3 years.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's how it was
Which includes
presented
the
last
fellow.
year.
And the fellow was on staff, right? She's been with us for some time.
And that is
Believe so.
our full cost or is there reimbursement here? From,
I have the phase
I
plan-
thought we discussed a reimbursement last year of so much.
phase plan.
Well,
Is
the
that
first year
not
had,
the
a- first
same?
year had a grant.
That's right.
Oh,
Well,
I
and we
see.
still have,
I
there's
get
some
it.
grant funding still
Yeah,
that we're
still some
using
grant
and
funding.
then,
So
right,
It
so
is
it's,
grant
the idea
funding.
is to,
All right,
Funded the first year or so.
but only for the first year?
yeah,
Is that right?
so, right, at the end of it all, it'll be 4 total FTEs.
Okay.
Because it'll be the one at each school. And then we need one to replace the fellow because she was working as a special ed teacher in the building so that she can be released to do the training, the supervise, do all of that. So it'll be the 4 FTEs. Now it's actually aligned with what our typical caseload is for elementary special education teachers. When you look at those numbers that are around, for
Okay.
each of those teachers.
And how much of it
And-
is in the grant?
So
What's the percent or,
we have one in the budget this year, one in the grant.
okay,
Next year, we move out of the grant.
totally
Proposal
grant
moves out of the
funded,
grant and into
totally
the
grant
budget.
funded of the one, okay.
And then the others come in the final year. I think. So, yeah, okay, see, I
And
paid
then it's
attention.
all our cost. Is
yes.
that- Yeah, that's what I thought.
Right, because the grant that they're in are the COVID, the ESSER grant, so they sunset.
Yeah. And that goes
Yep.
away, yeah.
And it,
Will
Right.
it? Will, oh, you can? You
Maybe.
can put it
this
in
would be
I-
certainly be eligible.
It
Oh,
would be, oh,
absolutely.
well, that's a
Absolutely it would be.
gift, yeah, if that
Yep.
ends up working, yeah.
And we would look to offset where we
Okay.
can. But the key here too is, since these students, and I can go back briefly, but since these students are our neediest students in reading. So providing this intensive intervention for them right away at these levels,
Yeah.
we anticipate, sort of reducing numbers and helping right along. And most importantly, probably it's changing the trajectory of their educational experience, right? Because, if you can't read by the end of 3rd grade,
Oh,
if you're
it's-
really
yeah,
struggling,
It's,
like, it's harder. Everything is harder. And that's where we move from learning to read to reading to learn. So it's, we really are focused on targeting that. And again, scientifically based, you have these slides you can take a look, but the program itself, again, it's very structured. And that fellow that we have, that Jen Tavello, who's going to be, is doing this work. Again, her training is not just for the academy. So she'll be working with all special education teachers across the district, because this is transferable to the general ed classroom and to other places as well. She'll also be working with all of our teachers, K-4, because if you're an elementary teacher, first and foremost, you're a reading teacher. It's just what you do, right? That's what you have to know how to do. And so she'll be able to, be our in-house trainer on this. And that will save again, cost offsets, instead of having to send folks out for training and, getting them certified and all those things with external costs. We'll be doing all of that in-house. And it is something that we've invested in through the years, the Orton Gillingham training for our special education staff. And it's actually something that, families and others know to ask for, when they come into the meetings and what have you. So it's worked well for us. And again, you have the slides with the results. It's early September to November, not much, time, whatever, but significant enough to share, so this is the Literacy Academy, the decoding data. And these are assessments that are, that are given, and we'll give them 2 more times as we go through the year and continue to monitor and evaluate. But, you see some nice movement here with kids, which isn't unexpected because the intervention is so intense. So there may be students that test out of the program and others that are coming in. They can be identified by the teacher as needing that, and then we would take a look and run some tests or whatever, or even on their way in, if they're not yet in our program and they're being assessed for to see if they qualify for a special ed program. If we see certain things, they could become eligible immediately for the programs. Yep, and then our last, I'll just go back to this one. We're also looking for an additional math specialist over at Saks. And again, to the grant, 50% of this would be grant funded. This is in response to, again, some of the challenges that we're seeing with of the scores and of the assessments. And then when we look at kids, it's the gaps in math are most apparent. So we're looking at, sort of how do we identify those gaps and remediate them and pick those kids up. Another thing that we just recognized is we've had significant turnover in math teachers over at Saks. Just across grade levels and other things just happen, right? It was nothing you necessarily anticipate, but between retirements and other things. So given those 2 converging things, having an additional math specialist there, it may not be a forever thing again, but we want to get somebody in place to coach teachers and to work with students directly as well. And they do both, right? They'll work with teachers around planning. And I mentioned that I've been meeting with the new teachers at each of the buildings. And when I met with the elementary and the middle school teachers, many of them have come from other districts. And so they shared, I asked them sort of what's working well, what should we do more of? And just about all of them said the coaching is working well. I wish we could do more of that. And they said, because where I was before, they gave us the curriculum and they said, essentially on it, here's where you have to be every day. Here's what you have to teach. So New Canaan doesn't do that. New Canaan says, here's the curriculum and here's the understanding by design template and how it worked out. It's up to you to work through with your kids the best way to get them to reach the curricular goals and standards as articulated. So they're able to monitor and adjust based on the kids in front of them to a person they prefer the way we do it. But they also recognize that it's harder on them because they've, instead of being told what to do, they've got to, figure that out. So they are learning it and doing a great job, but that's why the coaching is such an important investment.
What's the source of the grant funding for the math specialists?
That's another COVID grant.
Okay.
Yep. What's that? Oh, I'm sorry. Title I. I'm sorry. Thank you. Yep.
That doesn't go away necessarily.
No. Thank you.
How do you find a math specialist, given the teaching demand for math teachers? Is it someone internal that has the ability and you promote them and you backfill, or how do you find
Often that's the
somebody?
case. Often that's the case because it's somebody who has enough experience that they can do the coaching, right? You're not taking somebody right at, green, and you want to often hire someone into that position who already has the relationships with staff. And sometimes it can be someone who's already an informal leader in a variety of different ways, especially at the middle school where they're working on teams. So they are meeting at different times. So people do sort of
Rise.
They do. But there's also times where you can hire excellent coaches who have had who bring new ideas into the district too. You know, it's certainly it's something that districts have been investing in over the last, say, 7 years or so. And there's some excellent training available statewide and other places. So there are some people that are excellent coaches, well-trained, that may be interested in applying. Yeah, when you are the 17th best place to teach in America, you
Yeah.
It helps.
can recruit a little. No, but we do okay.
These numbers for the additional staffing proposals, those are just straight salary numbers. There's benefits on top of that, correct?
Those are straight salary numbers, correct?
Yeah.
Correct. Yep. And we use master 6 level. I think. So this is not a step 1 teacher. This is higher than that, just to be fair.
Let's keep plugging through because we want to cover capital and then questions, right?
Yes, thank you. So our very last thing is to add 1 campus monitor. Well, what 0.1 at the high school as well. We have a 0.9 teacher in English, making him 0.1 is a small investment that he's a brand new teacher. He'll pick up an additional class. And then actually what he'll do is pick up a class from our reading teacher there, which will allow her to focus more on the reading, which is again, more interventionist for the work that she's doing. So let's move there. And then the additional campus monitor. So as you know, we have a system of campus monitors where 3 at the high school, 3 at the middle school, and 1 at each of the elementary schools. One of the 3 at the high school is our lead campus monitor. So what we're looking to do is replace him with a full-time monitor to free him up. He can do a couple of different things. One is get to all 5 of the schools on a regular basis. You can do the training with those and checking with protocols and walking the buildings and doing those things that he should be doing as the lead. He can also work more closely with the principals, with the assistant principals, with the others. And really be a more visible presence for us. So it's to hire for that position, to free that one up, to be able to roam. And also, you know, we have absences in those spots as well. We do have a substitute, but we have 1. Sometimes there's 2 absences and others where you've got to sort of move things around and make it work. He would also be available to fill in as a floater if we need him to do that. So that is the cost of that. So you have these slides. I'll put them online if anyone would like to see them. Do you have the slide on the employee benefits, the ISF, and we do have Joe here. We asked Joe to join to quickly run through some of the insurance info and the bill, if that's all right. The handout that you had, the very last page is the page that Joe will quickly take us through. You don't mind doing that, Joe?
Great. Hello, everybody. You've seen this before, so it shouldn't be totally new. I think most of you have seen it at least. So just to kind of look at the sheet real quick. First column of numbers is the current base year. Second column numbers is the projection as of October. We have looked at claims through December as well. There was very little change to the overall projection, so we kind of kept the numbers from October. And then we continue to watch this throughout the budget cycle. So we'll update as new months of data become available. It's kind of broken into 3 boxes. The top box is experience period. That's the. Everybody have that?
It was an extra handout.
No, Kevin doesn't.
Oh, Kevin doesn't have.
Which one?
Oh, I thought I left one at your spot.
No, I think it was just one book that was short.
This back. That's good.
Oh, okay, all right, I'm sorry.
No, we have it. We have it.
Brian, I had an extra one. I gave him mine. Okay. So as you look at the sheet, there's broken into 3 boxes. Top box is the experience period. That's the 12-month period of claims data and enrollment data that we use to do the projection. The middle box is really just there for information, although it does feed into both the top and the bottom box. And the third box is the actual projection. So when we did the budget for last year, we used claims through November. Again, we look at it throughout the whole process, but there wasn't a significant change as we moved along. So we kept that from a budget perspective. Now we're looking at, in interest of time, I'll just kind of focus on the second column, if that's okay. I'm happy to reference the first column if needed. What we're seeing here is we first look at our gross paid claims. So that's the total claims that were incurred by New Canaan employees and retirees and their dependents This is the gross claim, so before any stop loss adjustments. As you all, I think, are familiar with, we have stop loss at 300,000. We make that adjustment further down in the calculation. So gross claims came in at $15.4 million or 2.78% lower than the base period. The next line down is our normalization adjustment. You might recall we made adjustments 2 years ago for COVID deferred services. We are not making adjustments here. I kept the line there. Some groups want to talk about it. We are not making adjustments going forward for any anticipated changes because of COVID deferred services. The insurance companies are not either, but we just keep it there in case in the future it comes up, or just to kind of show that we've done that in the past. So our adjusted claims is the same, 15,438,000. And then the way we do our calculation here is we're now going to back out anybody who is over $300,000 in claims. And in this calculation, we back out all claims. So if one member's at 1.2 million, we're going to back out all 1.2 million for that claimant. And then further on in box 3, we'll add that person back in, but only at the 300,000. Okay. So we're backing out the entire member. The idea behind that is twofold, really. One, that we're not trending, right? If we just back out anything over 300,000, in theory, we'd be trending $300,000 by whatever trend is. So we're trending higher claims than we'd expect. But it also allows us to be a little bit strategic about who those large claimants are. And we'll talk about that when we get further down. So I'm going to back out all let's call it $4 million. That gives us an adjusted claim, paid claims less large claims of $12,058,000. If we had any benefit adjustments, significant benefit adjustments, we'd do that here. Example here would be you had a copay plan, moving to an HSA plan. We'd adjust those claims, say, what do we think those will look like in the future period? We don't have any significant changes there. And then we bring in experience period contracts. So this is your employees or your retirees that are on the plan. And no, you don't have 7,657. Here, what we do is we count them once for every month that they're active over that 12-month period of time. So if you divide that by 12, you'd get your average enrollment, which will be somewhere around 630, 640 total on average. We then create a per capita of $1,574, which is 1.33% less than the base period. Questions on that? Great. Just to kind of familiarize ourselves, as we've talked about many times, what really kind of drives a good year or a bad year is really our large claimants and the change in large claimants. Did we get more large claimants than we had last year? Are some coming off the plan? And so you can see we were fairly consistent in the number of members, 47 that were over 50. In here, we used $50,000. We had 47 that were over 50,000 in both periods. But a higher dollar amount in the 12-month period through October 22. We currently have 5 members over the 300,000 for 3.4 million. We only had 3 at 3.4 million last year. And then of our claims that are actually over stop loss in this running 12, we had 1.9 million on 5 members versus 1.7 million on 3 members. Again, that's the running 12 months. That's not our fiscal year or our plan year to date, right? That's just if the 12-month period were a stop loss period, that's what it would look like. And then we do the add back. So here what we do, right, is we're going to add back all 5 of those members at the 300,000, which is why that's 1.5 million. Okay. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we kind of work our way down. In the claim modeling box, the first line you see is the trend months. And what that really applies to is the third line down, which is the 8.79. So 8.79 is our annual trend, right? Also known as the medical inflation factor, but takes into account more than just cost. Takes into account changes in utilization, changes in demographics, changes in the types of services people go about getting. So we're taking an annual trend of 8.79%, but I'm not predicting out 12 months from now, right? I'm trying to make those claims look like, what are they going to be 22 months from now? So I have to convert that annual trend into what we call an applied trend or an effective trend. An easy way to think about this is if annual trend was 12%, you could assume that's 1% a month. If you're doing a 22-month trend projection, your applied trend would be 22%. Okay. Math doesn't work exactly like that, but you could do it on a napkin and be pretty close to the way I figure out the number. So we're gonna take our per capita from the first box. We'll increase it by the applied trend. So our 1570.49 becomes 1838 on a per capita basis. No margin. We don't have any need to add margin here. When we might add margin if we see significant changes in employee counts and we're just not real sure what's happening. If there's other things going on in the market, maybe contract negotiations that we're not real comfortable with, we might make adjustments and put some margin in, but no need to do that. We then bring in our current enrollment, 634. And again, that's counting your employees, retirees are obligated to provide coverage to. That is down 1.4% from the previous period. We then project that number out going forward, becomes just under $14 million, $13,983,000. We then add back the 1.5 million for those large claimants above, right? So those 5 members at 300,000. And here, what we do know, and this is where I kind of talked about the strategy part of doing large claims the way we do it. We do have an idea of who some of these large claimants are, at least what their status is on the plan. So we know that of our large claimants that 3 are no longer on the plan and 1 is very likely to come off because they're on COBRA. So what we did is we said, let's just assume that 2 of those won't be on the plan, right? We know there's probably 4 that won't be on the plan, but let's be a little conservative. Somebody might take their place. So what we did is we adjust that by 600,000 saying, let's assume those 2 don't get added back because they're no longer on the plan. That gets us to a new claim projection of 14,883,000. And any other adjustments I would make would be applied here, which there are none at this point. So just keeping them at 1. So 14,883,000 is the new claim projection compared to the current base year of 14,536,000.
Joe.
Yeah.
Is the 5 members, does that include the 3 members from last year? Or have they transitioned off and these are all new or a little bit of both?
A little bit of both.
Okay, and are any of them out full-time? So there's a disability reimbursement?
So we
or-
don't know who they are.
But do we know if there's a disability?
What we do know is if they're still on the plan or not, or if they're on COBRA. So I don't have names for those members, but what I can see is that 3 of them are no longer on the plan, right? They're in the 12 months of experience, but no longer on the plan. And then we know the 1 COBRA member, that's a large claimant, his COBRA period ends in March.
So that assumes that they've either retired, they're on disability or worse.
Correct.
Okay, so this is not looking good that there's that many new ones. Just for perspective, that's a lot.
Yeah, it's the change in your stop loss at 300, right? So it's,
Yeah.
2 more is $600,000 for you.
How does the 14.8 compare to the 15.2? What's missing? The budget request is 15.2.
Oh, this is just claims.
This is
So just the claim build.
Claims without other, okay.
Yeah.
This is stop loss premium or anything.
Stop loss and admin fees. We don't really know what those are yet. So we have placeholders in for those numbers right now. But I wanted to show you the build of the claims here.
Right, so it's, right, you don't want to equate claims to the ISF deposit request, right? There certainly are connected, but there
It's
are
not
other
1 for 1.
gives and takes.
Yeah.
Correct.
And you said that there's 2 versus 4. You thought there might be 4 with the 300,000 adjustment. You assumed 2. Why not 3? Why wouldn't you just split
I
the?
said 3.
You said 2.
This is-
Well, we have 3 no longer on the plan and 1 that's on the plan now, but we
Strange.
fully expect will come off because its COBRA period the COBRA period will be ending in March. Just to make room in case 2 new come onto the plan.
So we currently have 5.
Correct.
This projection assumes
No, I
3.
get it, yeah.
And there's 1 known. Assumes 2 unknown.
If you back out the 300,000 and you're still projecting 3,377,999. That's a lot per person.
We have some very large
These are
claimants.
serious.
How much does that affect our insurance costs? I mean, it's got to.
Yeah, so it has a big impact on stop loss insurance. So, we do purchase stop loss with the town. It's a joint effort that we do. I've not talked to Larry about my projections yet. I will likely do that in the next few days. But this will likely be a year that we want to shop the stop loss. because we do have some significant changes with some of the extremely large claimants coming off.
Right, so the budget, it builds in a 50% increase on that stop loss cost,
Sure does, yeah.
which is sizable. I mean, it's about $750,000.
When will we know the answer to if you're gonna shop it and the bid it? I mean, we're not voting on this budget we're not really approving it till May. It'd be nice to have an answer. I mean, we have.
We
penciled a number of 2.1 million.
So because the boards, we'll have a better idea as we start to move throughout the process. We really won't know the board's final number really until June. That's when the stop loss carriers will lock in their stop loss for September plan year. Don't forget we're September,
Yeah.
not a July plan year. But we'll have a pretty good idea, I would say, as Larry starts to work through with the town budget to finalize that stop loss number. We'll have a better idea of what
June
the
works.
competition looks
It would
like.
be better, but June, it is what it is, but we'll have
Yeah.
to just to get that sorted out. But
But
okay.
are these projections based on just your assumptions of 5 people, or are these projections coming from the insurance company that is generating a?
Yeah, it's
more-
my projections right now. So we don't have a projection from Cigna at this point. But I don't anticipate much of a difference.
Any different?
No.
Okay, just curious.
Yeah,
All right.
I fully expect they'll be at the same 8.79 thereabout trend with some other experience that I've had with them so far. Our models are usually very close.
Yeah, good
Okay,
job.
all right.
And where this becomes very important, of course, is because there's another type of stop loss called the aggregate stop loss, right? So so Joe's projection, he works with Cigna, they identify what the attachment point for that. So that it calculates that 120%, and then the aggregate stop loss picks up the total cost of plan if you were to go over 120% of your projection. So that's something that Joe and Cigna work out, and your projections have been spot on with.
Yeah.
With that for years.
And so Brian's referring to there, let's just say we decided to use 5% trend and market trend is really 8.8. My claim projection would be lower. The stop loss vendor is not likely going to use a 5% trend. So the attachment point would still be based more on the 14.8. And that's an important piece of your budget because that's as part of the budget process, right? You're funding that 20%.
14.8 is what?
Expected claims for 23, 24.
What's this?
This year's expected claims are the 15.8
Correct.
or the 14.
14,536.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
That's on this page.
Brian, when we spoke the other day, we talked about the fact that the stop loss premium, the most that with the current vendor would be a 50% increase, and that's the number we plugged in
That
for
was the
now.
case in the past. I don't know that that's the case now. I don't think it is, actually. I think that that we did use the 50% number. But I don't know that there's a guarantee.
Correct. We have, I'm optimistic that because of what we're seeing with the large claimants that are coming off the plan, that will give us some leverage. And not to negotiate with Voya in a public meeting. But they've lost some money the last few years. So not sure they'd be willing to just come out with a very low number. And so it might take some market pressure either to get them to be more accommodating or consider a carrier change. I'm saying that I don't know what's happening on the town side. I don't know if they're experienced the same or the opposite. Which again, we're rated semi together. We get our own rate, but they are looking at us as one big pool.
Okay, any other questions? For Joe? Okay, I think we're good. Joe, great thing. Thank you.
To share that screen with the folks at home. So. A couple of other budget highlights. So a couple of other things, I know they're not the big movers, now we're talking about the margins a little bit, that 3-5% that isn't kind of locked up in fixed costs, but important things. In the gyms, there's a change in the rules for basketball. Finally going to a shot clock in high school basketball. It's about time.
Long time coming.
It's been a long time coming.
God.
As someone who used to coach girls freshman basketball,
Long
it's been a
time.
very long time coming. Yeah, so Thrilled for that. So we'll be putting up our shot clocks in the gyms. There's a question about the PSAT administration at the high school. I know that Board of Finance asked. We are looking to go with the school day administration of the PSAT. It's very common throughout the region, and the idea here is to administer the PSAT, give students that experience, but also capture the results in the data to be able to inform some instructional need and some other things for kids. It also provides them with links, I believe it still does this, to Khan Academy for them to study and to kind of brush up and build skills in areas that they underperform in. So there's a lot of options there for kids. So we think that'll be helpful for them. I put in the full cybersecurity number, although part of that I believe is camera systems. But this is, again, there's a question that was asked about this. This is the first year of a 3-year commitment. Do you want to speak to that? Rob?
Sure. The 75,000 is for Rubric and Palo Alto. There's
Okay.
another 17 in that account that adds up to the 95.
Gotcha.
In that particular line, a year-to-year increase of 95K. 75 is attributable to Rubric and Palo Alto. We've just ended a 3-year agreement where we paid all 3 years up front. We're not doing that anymore. We're deferring 2 of the years. We're paying for 1, we're expensing the first year, 24.
We don't really talk about this in the public meeting, so I'd rather not.
Yeah.
But I would ask, are you you're working closely with the town
We are,
on that topic?
we do.
Good,
We
okay.
do.
Yeah.
Yep. And if you would, when we do our executive session around
Yep.
security, I
Yep.
mentioned,
Yep.
glad to
Yep,
bring
perfect.
some folks and do it.
Okay.
Because that's all obviously a piece of it, big, important piece of it. Our outplacements number, you see that's below the market trend. We're seeing 5-8%, whatever increases across the board in placements and things like that. So, a modest increase there. Transportation, that's our 2% number. That's
Excuse
trending.
me,
So
the outplacement, that's not an increase in the number of placements. It's in the inflationary expense
It's the
of
trending cost
where they're
alone.
placed.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's actually more than that. And then there's some cost control in there to sort of get that down a little bit. Yep. And then, yep, I mentioned the transportation piece, that
2%.
2% contract. District not far from here that went out to bid was getting results of 14, 18, 20% a year in their bids. So this, again, we got a good rate there, good partners with us. Gate system around the school, the club sports funding is a slight increase there, and that's the sports that aren't a part of the CIAC. So squash, ski is eligible for there, some others. So that's funding to help those programs with a similar spirit of kids want to do it. We want to assist. We don't pay for all of it. We don't pay for coaches. We don't pay for other things because it's not a CIAC approved sport. But our kids are doing it. So we want to have a,
Do you know how
Yeah,
many
but-
kids participated in the club sports?
it's, there's a difference between participate and compete. It's a little tricky. Like for
Mhm.
instance, with skiing, I think you might have 6 or 8 students compete.
Mhm.
But there were 40 or so that were on the team and doing like the dry practice and doing whatever. So it is a little tricky that way. Squash is similar. You only have maybe, a handful of kids that are competing, but many, many more who are coming to the practices. So
Okay.
it's trickier that way. Yep. And then some furniture for the science lab up at the high school. Of course, I'm not going to do increases without some decreases. So to share a little bit here, the state is requiring us to move to a new system for our IEPs. It's certainly been a rocky implementation for lots of reasons. And I think it is what it is, but we're getting to a good place. And thanks to Bill and his team and the incredible work that they're doing. At the end of the year, we're going to be out of IEP Direct, which is the system that we've been using and funding. And we're mandated to go into the state system. So there's a savings there. The payments on our central office updates, we're bringing that down and First Selectman and I continue to talk about those payments and how that's all going to work. This is the renovation of that space. There were a couple of years left in that payment. I mentioned the electricity earlier and that trending down. West is transitioned over to propane fuel for its heating source. We couldn't get natural gas out there, no matter how hard we tried. So we're going to be burning propane instead. Just like I mentioned before, how it burns clean for the buses, does the same with the boilers. So it really is a long-term investment. And you'll see in the capital plan, we need a little bit more funding to bridge the gap between what the budget was and the actuals are on the new boilers for the 3 elementary schools. I'll get there in a sec. Working down the facilities overtime, that was a bump that we didn't really expect due to the late arrival of flooring for the schools. We did flooring at East and Saks. and the supply chain demands and how everything and where this stuff was coming from. We did what we could, but they really came in the 11th hour, and we had them, the whole, all staff, the whole crew on deck, kind of getting those areas ready to go. That plus, some of the school start time changes, we needed some overtime to sort of work some kinks out of that. Because moving around, again, the start times means your custodial times have to move to shift with the kids. And those are contractual agreements around the times and the shifts. So we've had to work that through. So that's where it bumped up a little on us this year. We're going to bring it back down. Then we've shifted to a new website. And along with that, we have a new app and other things, and that is going to save us $7,200 a year. You can see it when you go to ncps-k12.org. It's much better, much cleaner. We have someone who's doing that work, and we've developed they've developed for us an app that's specific to the New Canaan Public Schools that will have messages and updates and photos and other things to share. Encourage everyone to go online and check us out and download the app, give it a try. And we save money by doing it. So on the operating side, and I'm so grateful for your patience tonight. Some of the things that we're focusing on, of course, managing those operational costs, investing in high leverage activities such as the coaching and intervention for kids, investing in our youngest learners. You see, there's a lot here for our elementary guys, and that's purposeful, intentional. We really need to want to focus there, especially again, when you think about the last couple of years and the disruption. Who did it hit? All of us. Who did it hit hardest? Some ways, some of our youngest kids. So we want to make those investments there on their behalf. Enhances that security, and then, them to be responsive to our changing enrollments. So with that, I know that we covered a lot of the questions that were asked before, just, in the conversation, and we can shift to capital, and we can then shift back over to the.
Let's take a
questions if you
spin through
like.
capital and then we'll do questions. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. So I think you're right. I think you did.
I think so, but we'll
Not all of them.
ready, and I'll have Dan Clark will join me up here if and we'll just we'll go through a couple of highlights here, and I'm not going to certainly read this to you. You see it, and you know what it is, but definitely hit a couple of highlights. I'm glad to talk about any of it. I'm going to hit one highlight in particular, which you'll see when I get there. It's not in your packet. It's a little surprise for you. A little surprise to lighten up the night after a few hours. Anyway, so our capital requests.
Dr. Hubble.
What's that? No. A couple of highlights at each of the different spots. One at the district level. About 8 years ago now, we performed a facilities assessment where we had a group come in and take a deep dive at every one of our facilities, look at our mechanicals, look at the roofs, look at everything that we had, and then load into our 10-year plan. If you look at our 10-year cycle now, it looks pretty sparse in the out years, because as we've worked our way through this, we've worked our way through the plan. So we feel it's the right time to bring them back in, or bring somebody in to do a similar assessment, look at all of our buildings and all of the square footage, everything we have, and chart out again those capital improvement needs over the next 10 years.
Is this facilities dude?
No,
No,
well,
it's similar to the.
it would be an
facilities dude?
architect who will do the
Okay.
evaluation. Come in to
Same
do that
gig.
work. Right. Facilities dude is the system that you
Right.
could get it input into or not, or whatever. Right. But it is about, the roofing projects we're doing, the boiler upgrades, all those things are all informed by the study that we did 8 years ago.
Mm.
So this will inform us going forward, and, we're not going to see roofs and boilers, so that's a good news, but we'll see some other things and continue to trend. The other reason it's a good year to do it is there's new legislation that passed that requires school districts to do a thorough HVAC evaluation before it's at the end of the calendar year.
It's once every 5 years. The first one is end of 24.
So we're gonna lump those together, do it both at the same time. So we get that HVAC evaluation that's state mandated, and also look at all the other mechanicals while they're here. So that added to the cost of the assessment, but it's an investment worth making as we work to be good stewards of the building. The lots of similarity across the elementaries, as you'll see, the painting continues across the three. We're looking at installing an exterior PA system, K8, so it's 4 of the 5 schools, and really looking at that as a safety measure as well. where, because we're outside so often, kids at recess, kids different times, we're encouraging people on nice days to go outside. And if there's a need to immediately communicate with folks outside of the building, we need to be able to do that. So that investment with the exterior PA, which isn't, certainly sizable, but isn't backbreaking. But will give us the ability to do that, which we don't currently have. So currently we're using walkie-talkies, we're using whistles and doing some other things. So this will give us that. We've been replacing as well the fire alarm systems at the schools, the elementaries. It's done in 2 phases. One is the panel, and then the second is to follow up with the devices and the things that are out in the field. So you'll see that at the elementary schools as well. The worth talking about briefly is the boilers. So if you'll recall, in last year's budget, we had approved funding to replace the boilers at the 3 elementary schools. Those numbers were based on a cast iron boiler. So the numbers were lower than they need to be. Plus, we are in a spot, of course, where everything costs more money. We're inflationary times, everything else. So what we've been able to do is working together with the town finance department, make a request to transfer into the boilers over at East, so we can get that done. So that project is underway and done. We need the additional funding from what we transferred out to complete the job at South and at West. Now, the boilers themselves, they're obviously burning natural gas at 2 of the 3, and then it'll be propane over at West. They're called condensing boilers, and they're incredibly efficient. They burn very, very clean and relatively quiet. So, and they, because of that, their rated life, I believe, is 20+ years.
Correct.
All
right. At least.
I asked you that last week. I wanted to make sure. All right. So it's a good, and of course you save money because they are so efficient as they work. It's pretty-
I'm sorry, I'm
pretty
confused.
efficient
So
technology.
it's south, for the boiler. 350 was in the budget. Is it 369 more, or is it 369 the total
It's
cost?
369.
It wasn't 2 phases.
So the boilers are
No.
double the prices. Do I have that right?
Is that
Boiler
right?
prices, okay.
Yeah, for South, we originally budgeted 350, but
Oh,
we transferred out a portion of that to
Okay.
fully fund East.
Right, so so part of it was transfer. So what will the cost of the boiler south? Is it closer to the 1.5?
I think it's close to
Is like the one,
$500,000,
so
something.
similar to the one down at West, like more in that price, 509?
I don't know. Is that what it is?
Well, West, it says boiler funded, transfer to East.
same thing.
Yeah, I'm just curious what their actual. I mean, they cost what they cost. I'm just curious.
And of course, at that price, there's a bid process, everything else.
So how much of the south was transferred up to East?
So let's see. 350, we need 369. Hold on a second.
Looks like West has the transfer to East.
Yeah. that's right.
Down South.
West did it too.
Oh,
I'm just curious where they
where
actually end up
it's at.
costing,
huh.
Are they double?
Spent.
From the 350?
The bids came in much higher.
Yeah, yeah.
I think for the 3 boilers we had, I think we budgeted about 900,000 in
Yeah.
aggregate, and it ended up being about $1.8 million.
Wow.
3 boilers.
And
Couple.
we've seen all sorts of unbelievable changes in our systems and the costs. And
They're
more
gonna
than
double.
that, it's even the delay to get the equipment. And a lot of times it's a piece of equipment, it's some very small piece that really doesn't have much to do with the operation, but it can control the whole operation of our
Right, right.
projects.
So for South, we funded in full year 22, 350. The bid came in at 719.
Okay.
that's-
Wow.
So this is.
So they're double.
New prices, right?
Okay,
Is that
These
what?
are actuals, right?
These are actuals.
So the 350,
Okay,
I'm
so-
sorry, didn't get spent?
Not-
And now you want 369 more to make it
Make it whole.
3,719.
Exactly.
Wow.
Okay,
Too
so
bad we
the
didn't buy
East
that
School then
350
was
boiler
funded by
plant.
its own budget plus
Trying to keep putting stuff.
monies transferred from West.
Put it in.
Correct.
I see, okay.
So what's left in the south if you said it was funded for?
So
partial?
South, what's left alone, I believe, and
It
with an
was.
additional 369, it'll be made
Oh,
whole to
okay, so
cover the
that
cost of
wasn't
the boilers.
transfer. Okay.
That's to bring us up to 719 the total
Okay.
cost.
There we go.
Last transfer
Right, I got it.
227,
Okay.
All right.
750. So it needs the 509. So, and just for what it's worth, we're talking about boilers. There's actually multiple boilers at each location, right? It's not one. Is it two at each school, Dan?
The two in each school, yes.
Yeah, because you have to build in that redundancy when you do that, in case one goes down or whatever else. So it's 6 boilers as we look across, but
And it's
But they'll
more,
run more efficiently. They'll break even.
don't think of what you're spending, think of what you're saving.
Yeah, right.
you're right, though, they're staged. So if one is the only one that we need running because of the load outside, then it self-regulates.
But you also said they're condensing boilers and they last longer and they're more efficient.
Burn incredibly clean, yeah. And in truth, I mean, we are nervous about the boilers that we have, which is why we brought them forward, right? They're beyond their useful life. It's time to, we're investing quite a bit in repairing them and making sure that when we're gonna make it, we'll be okay through the winter, but we wouldn't want to go
Mm,
further than we have to.
Yeah, well, we talked about this last year, about how
Yeah,
these
we
boilers
did.
were.
Exactly.
You can- So do these take less maintenance? Like, so you don't have to clean them? There's like. Okay, okay. All right.
They're burning natural gas or propane
Right, okay.
versus diesel. Although we're natural gas now,
They're designed to burn natural gas as opposed to having been converted.
right?
So
Exactly.
Right.
okay.
And actually, and they burn so clean that you wanted to see that we're at Saks, the plant is impressive. Like we talked about the auditorium being a great place to visit. But it's a great place to visit.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very clean.
It's factory nerds.
Is that a club? Clean Energy Club?
So these.
There's no
budget either.
There's a supply, they'll get, or
Yep, so they're holding the price for us and
they have a supply that's
we
ready.
have to get the order in, as long as they're in place, by heating season, which generally, October, or whatever. we're in.
So should be, okay, great.
That's the plan.
So how does the I'm trying to find the capital for the last few years. Do you have it in your budget? No, I didn't see it in your deck.
We don't. I can find
You have it in the
I can
town
go
one? I
look.
didn't see it. in there.
You have the prior. Just go. Yeah, we don't go 5 years backwards. We go 5 years forward.
I just
and what-
understand
what'll
what.
happen, it's challenging because what'll happen is you'll have that big bump from the high school roof, right?
Yeah,
So,
No,
like, that's
I,
gonna drag
of
you up
course,
to
I
seven,
understand,
and,
understand.
so there's gonna be some swings, but
Of course. Every year there's something. There's,
yeah.
there's.
Well, speaking of, so this year.
On that happy note.
Perfect.
Just to take a brief moment for a labor of love here, if you'll indulge me. There's a question about the planetarium, and I just thought that I would just quickly share a timeline, a couple of things. You don't have this, I will send it to you. But essentially we talked about start times and the long kind of runway on that. We had actually talked about the planetarium pre-COVID before the shutdown and then kind of paused it. So, and then instead of a runway, it became a launch pad because we see the.
Nice,
You like
nice.
Very
If it
nice.
had worked in the balloon, it would have been better. I've been waiting all night. Nobody. I was gonna give a $25 Starbucks card to anybody that really was able to work in that balloon, and now you all lost. it.
We lost. We tried. But here we are. So we talked last year about the, funding for the planetarium and the Board of Finance and very generously, I think most of the members have even donated. The town funding, 350,000. And with the understanding agreement that it would be a public-private partnership. And, in truth, it was a relatively new thing for us, to create and have a brand new grassroots group startup. We do have our PTCs or PFA, they do a lot of fundraising. We have our All Sports Booster Club. We have our BPA boosters. We have lots of special groups that have been standing for a long time. This was a little bit different, getting something off the ground and going. And I've got to say, the group has been incredible to behold. They really jumped right into this. They came to the demo with the company to show us sort of what's possible. And we're so energized by that a few individuals, a couple of Board of Education members, and a great, incredible group of committed townsfolk got together, quickly elected a chair and started their fundraising. So I'm very, very proud to share tonight that the group has matched the town's contribution.
Oh,
So
great.
in this short period of time, they've raised a little over $350,000. In an environment where all the other fundraising is still going on, right? Ongoing, and as we're doing that. And it's donations big and small. And they've really worked hard. They started off, as you do, with a branding, a little bit, thinking about calling it a planetarium makes it sound like something from the 1970s, which it is. So they wanted to name it something else. And so they worked hard and came up with the dome. And the idea here is that it is literally, it's a flexible space that's interactive and immersive for anyone who's in there for the experience. So the idea here is, instead of it simply being planetarium, it becomes this interactive learning theater that's immersive and appropriate for all ages, and not just something to use during the school day, but a resource that really truly is open and available for the community to use for a variety of different purposes. We actually do see this as a revenue generator over time. And with that revenue, we would look to reinvest in it to purchase content, any kind of, maintenance it might need, other things. So we're looking forward to that as well. The dome itself, the technology we've talked about a little bit before. I've learned more since last time when we were talking about it, but the barrier to entry is low, right? We've got people on staff who are going to be trained in how to operate it, how to run the content and work through it. What we have now is very complex, and the barrier to entry is very high. You really have to be trained as an astronomer to make that work. Here, it's much more intuitive. Matter of fact, when I was demoing it not too long ago, I had a joystick, which was like an Xbox controller. They tell me I don't play Xbox, but you literally are driving. I was able to drive to Saturn, to go through the rings, to zoom in, zoom out, kind of travel through. And that was about 45 seconds of training. So when you think about how far we're going to be able to take this.
You were headed to Jupiter, unfortunately. That was the only problem.
I was. I wanted to get out to Pluto and see what that looked like. I couldn't quite get there. But when you think about the quality of the imagery that's coming these days, right, between Perseverance on Mars and the James Webb Telescope and everything else, it's just astounding. And we'll be able to log in directly to telescopes all over the world. And so we'll be able to see what does it look like from Argentina? What does it look like from Spain? What does it look like from, these massive arrays of telescopes? And we'll be able to pull that right up in real time. And take a
So,
look at it.
so it's a virtual planetarium then.
So it's still the planetarium,
Or,
right?
Observatory. It's not a real. one.
Exactly. It
You-
can be an
you don't have
observatory.
direct
Well, the roof
view
doesn't.
telescope.
It's connected by the.
Well, it's connected by,
It's
right.
virtual.
It's literally, it's
Always has
streaming in what they're putting out, right? So their imagery is available. You can log in and you can see right through there. So it becomes a virtual observatory of that telescope. Correct.
You log into that telescope
Yeah.
in Hawaii or in wherever, and that's what you see.
Yeah.
Or that's what that's so it's
But you can't.
Real
see
time.
directly-
kind of not virtual.
You
It's
can't see directly what's over.
Well, you're not controlling those, but you can, depends on,
So-
so that's
So if the
the.
balloon floats over
there we go.
New England, you can't watch it directly.
The gift card sale.
$3, you owe me a gift.
The contest is over. No, but I mean.
No,
literally,
in real
you-
time.
you can't.
So yes, so there are,
Or
the
if green
software
comet-
allows you
Yeah, there you go.
to
If
view
the
the
green
sky in
comet-
real time.
Yep,
Yep.
you couldn't have seen it
You
directly.
see what he's asking? The green comet that just came over last Wednesday.
I
or
was
last week.
wondering about that.
Is
Can you
is that
see it?
that's a good question, because I think you could see that had
Yeah.
it not been cloudy or whatever. it was.
Yeah.
That's a good question. What you would have to get some telescope that could do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
and
we
if
can-
you
we
can
can-
you
we
can
can
see
look
where
at
it's
it.
traveling, see where the telescope arrays are, log into that array. And
I have.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yep. yeah, it's, and that's just one of, so many features that this has that
So what's the
It's
status? Help
amazing.
us with where it is and,
So-
yeah.
we have, see if I have the breakdown. There you go. So we've they've fundraised
Down to
on
110.
town. They've gotten to the
That's
700,000
200.
number as of
Mhm.
today. This is just as of
That's
today we
great.
come in. So it's really, so we're about that 150 short. It's the target has been 850. That is to do everything right. We are budgeting in, we need new chairs, for instance. I mean, it really needs an overhaul top to bottom, right?
Yep.
And we actually believe we found the design of the chairs that's going to work incredibly well. Actually, funny story. We called a company in Norway because we've been looking for the right chairs since the beginning of this, and it's really been tough because some of them are inclined, but they don't recline, you know, they're fixed and they don't bounce, right? And you want chairs that can lean back or, you know, be upright, and you want little tables. And we've been looking, haven't found anything, finally found them, called out there, we're talking to them, and they said, well, wait, are you in New Canaan, Connecticut?
Huh?
They said, yes. Well,
The
we're
same
doing
place.
the seats for the theater.
Perfect sense.
But it was perfect.
We're their best
And of course, we said, give us a discount.
Good thing we waited.
Right? Right?
Unbelievable.
It's meant to be.
Right? Meant to be.
Uh,
So we think we found the right seats. We're still working through all of that. But
But the problem is
That was-
shipping to get them here.
Yeah, right.
that's right.
Yeah. So the request on a capital basis is the full 150 gap, or is this still part of the split?
We're looking for the 150 gap so we can get phase 2 ordered and get this thing done. That'll get them across the finish line.
Okay.
That
It's,
seems
uh,
fair.
Is that,
That's,
is it in the line item here? It's 200.
200.
Down to
yeah,
150?
so I'm down from
So you're
that.
down.
Down
Since the
down
budget
to
was
that,
developed in
yeah.
December.
You,
You had me at
because of
200, so.
The end of the year.
I like it.
And
We've
no,
been
don't
talking
tell me-
about this for so long.
I
to
know
get
that.
it done.
Yeah, right.
No, but
That's
still.
right.
we ready
Alright.
to
It's like the
go?
boiler. It'll be more expensive next year.
Absolutely. Yep. It's, but so the end of the year giving, you know, and a few large gifts, and we even had some alumni and, even,
Excellent.
you know, a couple of
Why
years.
why don't they keep going and we'll match the differential?
Well.
Not solving the amount tonight. That's the request.
They've done an incredible job and they're getting a little tired.
Done an incredible job. That's
I think
great.
it'd be nice. And there's also the other pieces, as you know, any piece of hardware is as good as the software that runs on it.
Right.
So
Yeah.
the programming for this is going to be key as well. Now that's, you know, we anticipate being able to rent space out and raise some income through that but any gifts in addition will go towards content for this because, you know, kids aren't going to want to come for a birthday party or whatever if what you have on there is meant for high school seniors in astronomy, right? So the content matters.
Mhm.
So if we can build a decent catalog of content, the use will be better. So that's another piece that we think about. That's
When
not
does it
built
come
into the
online?
850.
For next, when's it going to be done?
Well, that depends.
Well,
Okay.
Because so we've ordered phase 1
Mhm.
and that's in the works and we're beginning the demo and over the winter break by removing seats and doing things. So phase 1 is to move the projector, demo the dome, do other things like that. Phase 2 is installation and the technology and the sound and the lights and those other pieces. So phase 1 was about 400,000 and phase 2 is the rest, a couple $100,000 more. So once we get phase 2 ordered, we'll get our timeline from there. And now the goal is certainly to have it up and running next year. I'd love to have it up and running by the beginning of the year. Supply chains are tough. So I'm just not sure because the dome is aluminum and it's very precisely manufactured and other things. So we'll see if there's a delay there. Hopefully not.
So you said you actually collect fees from, I used to renting the space. Do you see this as self-sustaining or do you think it might need a?
I think this investment will last. It's not a lot of money, you know, when we rent out, we essentially recoup our costs. And then there's a little bit of a delta that builds up over time that we use here and there. So that might be helpful for content a little bit or to invest in something like that. But I don't anticipate a significant investment being needed for some time because this really should set us up for.
It'll be the Intergalactic Services Fund. It's a new ISF. Okay, well, look, I,
Yeah.
on the list, I think we got it. I think
I
that's,
know you
you
did.
know,
I-
it's
that's-
$5 million, $5.3 million in total for capital. Was it 5.3?
No, 4.3.
Well, for facilities capital, that's a little
Coffee.
different than the.
Technology and transportation added in 5.3.
So that
Okay.
transportation is the 3 vehicles as we have every, essentially rolls them out every 7 years or so.
We will probably come back and ask for a must-have, need to have and
Yeah.
like to have,
I agree.
because we've got a police state, we got some big ones coming down the pike, and we just are not gonna load up 20, 30 plus $1 million of debt this year. We just can't do it. And so we'll have to
Well,
think
so we'll
about
take a look.
a priority, yeah,
And see what can be deferred.
something, right,
Yeah,
exactly.
okay.
Boilers are boilers, you need them, you gotta order them, we understand that.
Some
obviously.
things are in phases, you know, so if we're in phase 2 of something, we may look to just sort of get
would
that
be good.
across the finish line, but. okay.
Well, can I, if it's okay with you, can we just see where we are with questions? I think everyone contributed, so no one has to own up to any particular question. But you've seen the responses.
So let me jump into those. And again, we wanted to get these back tonight
Yeah,
because we know
good
it's
swing.
a good couple of weeks before we see you again. So I
Good swing.
Any
You know,
insurance
I
questions?
like
I
to
have
write
questions on
and-
Joe's here. Where Joe is.
explain a lot of things. I tried to be succinct in some spots here, but I'm glad to talk about anything more.
No, I don't think we have any health expense or ISF questions, Joe. So I mean, I know it's a lot of fun to hang with us, but I mean, you gotta.
Thank you. for
Thank you
being
so
here.
much, as always. Great job.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Great job.
You know, so there were, questions around the enrollment variability piece. And I didn't really go into detail about sort of classroom, building substitute teachers and all that stuff. I'm glad to if you like, but otherwise we don't need to. So the enrollment variability really, the goal there is to provide the flexibility to get the staffing where we need it. We have had years where we've had a negative enrollment variability, others that were positive. This year, we're still, we have some concerns around a couple of grade levels. We have 2 in there for the EVA for classroom teachers. There's 3 grade areas that we're looking, that we anticipate breaking over, or at least are very close. That's the grade 4 over at West is at 23 and change. And again, this is the enrollment projection. So they're at 23 and change at grade 4 over at West next year. That's the students per class. So if we pick up a couple of more 4th graders, that one would split. In grade 1 over at South, we're actually already over the class size guidelines by a couple of kids. So we're kind of keeping a close eye on that. And then kindergarten over at East is close as well. So, but they're not over, right? So if they wind up not going over, we don't use that enrollment variability adjustment. It's there in case that does go over. Over at South, we had to make that decision. There's one low grade level, but then there's this other one that's already over. It was sort of one or the other as we sort of made that decision. If it stays as is, we would likely shift out of the 1 grade with 97 kids, shift the staff member over into the grade 1 with 103 kids, right? So that's sort of we get that precise. I will share with you that in years past, our goal was always to be between 18 and 20. Although the guidelines are 16 to 20, but we really worked hard to be between 18 and 20. The last year or two, we're really kind of saying 17 is probably okay, given the intensity of the individualized work that's necessary in the experience the last couple of years. We hope in the future, we'll go back. I mean, it's only a kid, but it matters, right? So we'll go back up, but that has been, for instance, you look at 1st grade numbers, they're 17s, could have been 20s. Or 21s, but we really let's invest there on those kids. Again, young learners coming through and they need more individualized support than we've seen in the past. So we did that intentionally, but stayed within those guidelines as much as we can. So the enrollment variability adjustment, there's 3 areas that we're really keeping a close eye on. We asked for 2. We don't need it. We're not going to use it. It's a little different with the specials area. So what's happening if you look year to year, we're up in our number of 4th grade sections just overall. And in 4th grade, kids get 2 classes of science per rotation, or in the younger grades, they get 1. And same goes with other specials. So because we have more 4th grade sections, we actually have to increase in those areas as well, in the science and others, where we wouldn't have to do it if they were in the lower grades. And it's also generally when we go up a section in the elementary, we add a 0.2 for specials because those kids have to have a specials teacher. And then that just gets figured out across the scheduling and whatever we do. We don't generally hire a 0.2 teacher, but we might pull from another building and move things around and kind of make it all work. And Dr. Corretti is a master of kind of putting that puzzle together each year. The kind of the difference in the pages. So on page 89, it rolls that 3.5 up. So it's the 2.0 for the classroom and then the 1.5 for the specials that is rolled up into the total enrollment variability cost.
Okay.
And then, I'm glad to answer them, but I think you see the answers on some of the other specifics.
Let me ask the board the question. How do you want to handle this? We asked these questions over the last 24, 48 hours. They've written answers for each question. Do we want to just read this on our own time and circle back and have any follow-ups? You want to do it that way? Because there may be more coming out of tonight.
Yeah, I think. after
Just
tonight-
eyeballing them, there's an answer for every question. Go ahead. Well, let me ask you, is everybody okay with that approach? Take a look at them.
And then add.
Yeah,
to-
there's a lot here.
Let us do that. Let us process what you
Yeah,
did.
and
Great
then
job
add to-
getting this all done that quickly. And then we'll just circle back with anything we've got as a follow-up. Well, Maria, you had one.
Yeah, I just had one because we were just talking about the enrollment variability. The only question I have is when you look at kindergarten at West, you've got 5 sections and only 77 students right now. So really, you've got room for that to increase, in addition to, and it's South as well. I think there was another grade, I think it was grade 3, you have 6 sections there, and I understand. But so, I mean, I know you're building in variability, plus this feels like an enrollment variability as well. So it feels like really it's sort of a 4 enrollment variability instead of like a 2.
Well, so that the trick is that 77 kids, right? And again, the projecting on the school by school is very imprecise, but so the 77 kids, there's 3 student delta between having to add a teacher.
Right.
Right, so that's our experience has been that we really aren't running below 80 anywhere over the last number of years. And so, and as we look at our kindergarten enrollments currently and other things, really feel pretty confident that that is what that it's going to.
That's what it's
exceed
going to end
80.
up.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't really see, what I actually see there is upside protection, because from 80 to 100, we don't need, that section doesn't need to be split.
Yeah.
Right, so our experience tells us it's gonna land somewhere between there.
One question that came up while you were talking, I'm just now looking for my notes, but on your page 27 of your deck, you did have notes, one question. You take my note? Salaries. I think in the actual from page 27 on salary, 60,093. I think the budget was $1 million higher. And I think you came in $1 million less. And in 22, same thing. I think the budget was about $1 million more, 63 plus, you came in at 62. I don't know what you're running at today, but you budgeted 64.9 off of 63. I think. So the question is, if you're running, looks like your projection's about $500,000 off, but a 3 million jump from the budget projection of 64.4 to 67.4. As you know, this is all much more than our guidance was. Now, I think we all understand what you're trying to do and all the things that you did, and it's a great budget and in so many ways, but there are these things like that where we're budgeting off of a budget, get it, where we had other estimates like the stop loss of 2.1 versus the last year's of 1.4. It's a guess. We understand all those guesses. So we just have to sharpen the pencil, I know, throughout the course of this process to try to find that $1 million without affecting the product and the front end of the business and all the teachers and everything else. So I think that's some of the feedback we're gathering from the team here, because just generally overview is phenomenal job. I mean, it's a great budget, gets better every year. It's a tremendous product, right? So, but it is a lot more than we were thinking.
Yep.
I also think there's a difference between what happened with COVID and what your expectations are. I mean, is there room there that it could be better, a lot better, or are you just assuming the worst because we're catching up? I
You
mean,
talking about the
that's-
results?
yeah, well, salaries, teachers,
Yeah, it
And
is tricky to use, and I'll do a deeper dive for sure. But leave of absences over the last couple of years have been higher than normal. There was actually, even in last year's budget, there was an LOA allowance of about $100,000 that was in there because, with an LOA, what happens is the person goes out on leave and they, when they're out of sick time or whatever, we stop paying them out of their account, and then somebody else is subbing in, and then the sub pay is coming out of that salary account. And there's a delta there of savings because you're paying the person substituting less than you're paying the person who's out on leave. And we had an increase in the number of leaves through the pandemic and the experiences people had and other
Yeah.
things. So there's factors like that might feed into it. I don't know that it, rolls up to $1 million, but I think that
Well,
certainly
those
does.
are the kinds of
play
things
into
that
it.
when I was going through, I thought, how much of this is a result of?
Yeah.
And I mean, do they come back? Are you assuming that when this leave is expired over a certain period of time, do they automatically, are they invited back or do you have to?
Every case is individual.
Okay,
right?
okay,
And
so,
so if someone's out on maternity leave.
Well, that's
For
different,
a
yeah.
year, then there's a date that they have to inform us that they're going to be coming back and all of that. And we track that carefully. We saw a higher number of retirements than we anticipated.
Right.
Over the last couple of
Yep.
years, right? Folks that maybe were holding on a little bit, decided that it was a good time to go.
Yep.
And then also, with the market and the housing market improving as it did, I think some folks have said it was a good time to relocate. So we've seen some of that too. But I'm speaking anecdotally, so I'm happy to take a deeper dive into it. and see.
That should have
and
two,
just-
that should have two impacts. One, the younger teachers, lower costs, not always, but,
oh, yeah,
and also the health benefits of a lower,
yeah.
a lower age population.
Well, not.
So if we,
I'm speaking to the delta between the budget and the actuals.
you're right. If we do that, take a look at the questions, go through the answers. If they're follow-ups, the best thing is probably just continue to do what you did. Send them to me. I can be the single point of contact and
Okay.
get them to
Yep.
to this team and we'll bat it back and forth. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Great job. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you a
Yep,
lot.
well done. Thank you. Thank you, to all of you.
Only 4 hours,
Started at 6.
only 4 hours.
I know.
Only 4 hours is that?
And
They
it's
started at
still
6.
fresh.
Started at 6.
Six, yeah. Yeah.
All set.
Still makes it.
Yeah, I do need a motion to adjourn. Maria, quick hand, second, please.
Sure.
Judy, Colm had a second. We'll give that one a good assist. All in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye, opposed. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Colm.
Right.